The battlefield should have been filled with monsters. Instead, Sung Jin-Woo fell out of the sky and landed on broken concrete. The dimensional gate behind him collapsed instantly, cutting off the world he came from. His boots slid across cracked asphalt. His cloak settled. His daggers were already in his hands before he fully stood. He looked around. Ruined buildings. Burned cars. A highway split down the middle. A dead city under a greenish sky. This isn't a dungeon. No mana density. No system notification. No quest window. But his shadow soldiers were still there, folded inside his shadow like normal. Something moved. Gunfire erupted. Bullets slammed into his chest, face, arms. They bounced off. "What the hell?" a man screamed. Jin-Woo turned his head toward the sound. 5 men in dirty armor stood behind a pile of scrap metal. They had rifles, makeshift helmets, and red markings on their shoulders. Raiders. One of them fired again. Jin-Woo walked forward. "Stop shooting!" another shouted. "He's not dying!" Jin-Woo raised one hand. "Arise!" 3 shadows erupted from the ground beneath the raiders. Black hands grabbed ankles and dragged 2 men screaming into the asphalt. One tried to run. A dagger flew. The man dropped. Silence returned. Jin-Woo scanned the area. No monsters, no magic beasts, only ruined human structures and rusted vehicles. Another world. He crouched and touched the ground. Radiation. He didn't feel it, but his shadow reacted to something poisonous in the air. More movement. From between 2 collapsed buildings, large green figures stepped out. Their bodies were bulky, muscles unnatural, faces distorted. Each carried a heavy weapon. "Human," one growled. "Kill." Super mutants. They charged. Jin-Woo didn't dodge. He vanished. The first mutant's head hit the pavement without a body. The second tried to swing a club. Jin-Woo passed through him like smoke and stabbed upward. Black energy followed the blade. The creature dropped. The last one fired a crude rifle. Jin-Woo caught the bullet. He crushed it. Primitive weapons. The final mutant roared and rushed to him. Jin-Woo activated his skill. Shadow exchange. He appeared behind the mutant and sliced through its spine. 3 corpses lay in the street. Jin-Woo stared at them. They're not monsters, but they're not human either. He tried something. Arise. Nothing happened. He frowned. Resist. He focused. Arise. One body twitched. Black shadow leaked from the mutant's chest and formed into a kneeling figure. The shadow soldier had the same bulky shape. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. So this world's creatures still have extractable souls. That confirmed it. This world followed different rules. But his power still worked. A distant siren echoed. Then shouting. Humans. From a side street, a group of people ran. They wore cleaner clothes. Some had laser rifles. Others wore armor with a star symbol. They stopped when they saw the bodies. And him. One man raised his weapon. "Don't move!" Jin-Woo stood calmly. The man looked at the shadow mutant kneeling behind him and swallowed. "What are you?" "I don't know where I am," Jin-Woo said. "Explain." They exchanged glances. A man stepped forward. "Name's Preston Garvey. You just saved our patrol." "What world is this?" "The Commonwealth." Jin-Woo looked around again. "The sky is wrong. It's been wrong for 200 years. Preston stared at him. "Are you Institute? Brotherhood? Some kind of synth?" "No." Another voice cut in. "You killed super mutants like they were rad roaches." A woman with a press hat stepped closer. "Piper, you're not normal." "I know." More sirens. Vertibird rotors echoed in the distance. Preston stiffened. "Brotherhood's coming." "Who?" "Power armor guys, not friendly." Jin-Woo looked toward the sky. A large aircraft approached. "Interesting." He turned back to them. I arrived by accident." "Accident?" Piper repeated. "Yes. I was fighting something else." "And now?" Jin-Woo looked at the ruined city. "Now I need information." The vertebra descended in the distance. Preston raised his rifle. "They'll try to take you." Jin-Woo's shadow rippled. "Let them." His shadow soldiers moved slightly, sensing hostility. The Wasteland had just met something worse than radiation, and Sung Jin-Woo hadn't even begun to use his real power yet. The vertebra never reached them. Before it could descend fully, Sung Jin-Woo turned his eyes away from the sky and toward the ruined street ahead. His shadow stretched longer than it should have under the green-tinted clouds. Movement was coming. Not human, this time. Heavy footsteps shook the cracked asphalt. From behind a collapsed storefront, 3 massive figures emerged. Green skin, huge muscles, metal plates bolted onto their bodies. One carried a missile launcher on its shoulder. Another dragged a rusted minigun. Super mutants. Preston stiffened. "Those aren't normal ones." Piper whispered, "That one's a heavy." Jin-Woo didn't draw his daggers. Instead, he spoke calmly. "Go." His shadow peeled away from his feet. 3 low-grade shadow soldiers rose from the ground. They were basic infantry units, no names, no elite status, just black humanoid shapes with glowing eyes. They charged. The super mutants roared and opened fire. Bullets ripped through the first shadow soldier's torso. It collapsed into smoke. Jin-Woo watched. "Projectile weapons damaged them," he said quietly. The second shadow soldier reached a mutant and slashed. Its arm passed through flesh like mist, but still cut deep. The mutant howled and smashed it with a club. The shadow dispersed. The third shadow soldier dodged, leapt, and stabbed through the mutant's neck. The body fell. Jin-Woo narrowed his eyes. "So physical contact still works." The remaining mutants turned their weapons on him. "You! Die!" The missile launched. Jin-Woo vanished. The explosion tore apart a car behind him. He reappeared behind the missile mutant and drove a dagger through its spine. The last mutant fired wildly. Jin-Woo didn't dodge this time. He stepped forward and punched straight through its chest. The body dropped. Silence returned. Preston stared. "You didn't even flinch." Jin-Woo crouched beside one of the corpses. "Arise." Nothing happened. He frowned slightly. "Resistance." He focused harder. "Arise." Black energy leaked from the mutant's chest. The shadow formed slowly, unevenly, like it was being forced out of something corrupted. The shadow soldier knelt. Jin-Woo studied it. "This world's mutation interferes with extraction," he muttered, "but it doesn't stop it." Piper swallowed. "You're raising them. From the dead." "They are tools," Jin-Woo replied. A radio crackled on Preston's shoulder. "Garvey! More mutants coming from the north!" Jin-Woo turned his head. A ruined parking garage shook as something huge stepped out. It was taller than the others, thicker. Its skin was scarred and plated with bone growths. A behemoth. It roared and lifted a chunk of concrete. Preston shouted, "We need to fall back." Jin-Woo didn't move. Instead, he raised his hand. 5 more shadow soldiers emerged. Low grade, disposable. "Attack!" They rushed the behemoth. It swung its concrete club and crushed 2 instantly. The others climbed its legs and stabbed repeatedly. The behemoth roared and tore one in half. Jin-Woo watched every movement. Strength exceeds standard monsters. Reaction speed slow. No magical defense. The behemoth threw one shadow soldier aside and charged him. Jin-Woo stepped forward. The concrete club came down. He caught it. The behemoth froze. Jin-Woo crushed the club and punched through its head. The body collapsed. For a moment, no one spoke. Preston lowered his rifle slowly. Piper whispered, "We just watched a Deathclaw-level threat get punched to death. Jin-Woo walked to the behemoth's corpse. Arise. The corpse resisted. He felt something strange, like static instead of mana. Interesting. He pushed harder. Black energy burst outward. The behemoth's shadow rose. This one was massive, taller than the mutants, thicker than the others. It knelt. Jin-Woo looked at his growing shadow army. So even radiation-made creatures can be converted. He turned to Preston. Where do these come from? Super mutants, Preston said. They were made by the Institute. Jin-Woo's eyes sharpened. The Institute. Underground. Scientists. Tech monsters. Scientists, Jin-Woo repeated. That word stuck. Before he could ask more, something else moved. The ground cracked. A roar shook the street. Something much faster, much more dangerous leapt from a nearby rooftop. A death claw. Its claws tore into one of the shadow soldiers instantly. It spun and slashed another apart. Jin-Woo smiled slightly. So you're the apex predator here. The death claw charged him. Jin-Woo didn't dodge. He grabbed its jaw and slammed it into the pavement. The creature thrashed and cut his arm. The claw bent. He stabbed through its skull. The death claw collapsed. Preston shouted, "That thing wipes out towns!" Jin-Woo stepped over the body. Arise. The death claw resisted harder than anything before. So you're different. He pushed his authority down. The shadow burst upward. A massive death claw shadow formed. Its eyes glowed purple. It knelt. The shadow army now included Super Mutant Shadow, Behemoth Shadow, Deathclaw Shadow. Piper took a step back. You're building an army out of our nightmares. Jin-Woo looked at the Deathclaw Shadow. This world is dangerous, but it's inefficient. What does that mean? Preston asked. It means you're fighting without a commander. The vertibird sound grew louder again. Jin-Woo turned toward the sky. A Brotherhood craft hovered overhead. Power-armored soldiers jumped down. One raised a rifle. Unidentified entity, stand down! Jin-Woo raised his hand slightly. The Deathclaw Shadow stepped forward. The Brotherhood soldiers froze. What in God's name is that? Jin-Woo spoke calmly. I am not your enemy. One soldier whispered, he'd just made a Deathclaw kneel. The Brotherhood commander spoke into his radio. Elder, we found him. Jin-Woo looked at the soldiers. So this is the world's military? He turned back to Preston. You said there are scientists responsible for this. Yeah, Preston said. They make monsters and robots. Jin-Woo's shadow rippled. Then I need to meet them. Above them, far underground, machines were already watching. And scientists were already calculating. The dust of battle still hung in the air. Broken concrete, scorched asphalt, and the faint stench of mutant blood clung to the streets. Sung Jin-Woo stepped over the collapsed Deathclaw Shadow's massive claws, his cloak fluttering in the muted wind. The Brotherhood soldiers hovered uncertainly, their rifles shaking in their hands. Preston Garvey stepped forward, keeping his hands raised. You said you want to meet the scientists, but you can't just... I don't want to fight them yet, Jin-Woo interrupted. I need information first. I don't know the rules here, and I need to understand what this world is. A sudden vibration from underground caught everyone's attention. The metal hatch of Vault 111's entrance groaned and shifted. A group of vault dwellers, middle-aged men, women, and a few children, emerged slowly. They looked terrified. One of them clutched a small child to her chest. Jin-Woo paused. Vault dwellers, he said plainly. You survived what? 200 years underground? A man stepped forward cautiously. His hair was graying, but his posture was rigid. Yes, but who are you? Someone who didn't ask to be here, Jin-Woo replied. I came through a rift. I need to know what's happening in this world. The woman with the child whispered, He's not like any raider or mutant. He didn't kill us. Yet. Jin-Woo's eyes scanned the vault entrance, noting the reinforced doors and the radiation gauges. You're hiding from something. Yes, the man said, his voice quivering. The world. It's dangerous. The outside, super mutants, raiders, creatures, and the scientists. They make things. Jin-Woo's lips curved slightly. Things. The woman finally stepped closer. You should leave, or they'll... I will leave if I want to. But first, I need to understand your vault. And I need to see your monsters. The ones you've created. Preston's jaw tightened. You can't just... Jin-Woo raised a hand. Shadows twitched behind him. A low hum emanated from them. Even the faintest movement of his shadow soldiers made the vault dwellers step back instinctively. The man cleared his throat. We mean no harm. But if you stay, you must be careful. The Institute, they track everything. Jin-Woo crouched slightly, his fingers brushing the asphalt. Institute, pre-war scientists? Yes, they live underground. They make super mutants, synths, weapons. They don't care about human life. He nodded. I understand. I don't intend to be their ally. A small child peeked out from behind the woman. Are you going to kill us? Jin-Woo's shadow shifted around his feet like smoke. He crouched further and looked at the child. I only kill those that threaten me, or the innocent. You are neither. The child's eyes widened. You're not like them. Jin-Woo's gaze hardened. I am not like anything here, but I can help. Preston exhaled, visibly relieved, but still wary. You saved us. But even if you want to help, you can't fight the Institute alone. Jin-Woo stood slowly. Shadows surged around him, forming low kneeling shapes. His low-tier shadow soldiers from the earlier test, they hovered silently behind him. I don't need to fight them alone. But I need intel first. The vault dwellers began to relax slightly. The woman whispered to Preston, maybe he's what we need. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the horizon. Underground, the faint glimmer of machinery hinted at the Institute's reach. He could feel it, not like mana, but like a pressure against his authority. Shadows flickered nervously. Interesting, he murmured. They're interfering in a subtle way, not enough to stop me. Yet. The man from the vault spoke again. If you intend to move against the Institute, you should know they're not just scientists. They have machines, weapons, synths that think like humans. They are dangerous. Jin-Woo tilted his head. Machines that think. Are they similar to humans in strength? Some are, the man replied. Others can fight like soldiers, but faster, smarter. Jin-Woo's lips curled into a thin smile. Good. Then I'll have someone new to test my shadows on. Preston stepped forward, hesitating. Just don't destroy the vault. The people inside, they don't deserve this. Jin-Woo glanced back at the kneeling shadow soldiers. They will not be touched. These soldiers are mine, and I will control them. But anyone who tries to harm this vault or me will regret it. The child peeked again. Your shadows are alive? Yes, Jin-Woo said, and they obey me. All of them. Piper muttered under her breath. I think we just met a god. Jin-Woo ignored the comment. His attention was already shifting toward the horizon, toward the faint glimmer of tech and machines. Somewhere underground, the Institute was already noticing him, already beginning to calculate. He let the shadow soldiers kneel behind him, silent and waiting. The low-tier soldiers had done their test outside, and now he had information. He had human allies, wary though they were. And he had the first clues about the Institute. A calm, deadly thought crossed his mind. This world thinks it can resist me. That will change. Jin-Woo straightened, looked at Preston, Piper, and the vault dwellers. Tell me everything about your world. About monsters, about your scientists, about weapons. Preston swallowed hard. We'll do our best. But you need to be careful. The Institute doesn't fail often. Jin-Woo's shadow rippled slightly. Neither do I. Above them, the sky remained green. Below, the vault waited, and Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army, kneeling silently, was already planning its next move. The streets of Diamond City were crowded with survivors, merchants, and scavengers. The marketplace had seen better days. Stands were patched with scrap metal, and the smell of irradiated food mixed with ash from the nearby ruins. Sung Jin-Woo walked calmly through the gate, shadow soldiers kneeling subtly behind him, invisible to everyone who wasn't paying attention. Preston Garvey led the way, trying to keep Jin-Woo from attracting too much attention. Piper trailed close behind, notebook in hand, eyes wide. You really think they'll let you just walk around? Piper whispered. Diamond City isn't exactly a neutral zone. Jin-Woo's eyes scanned the buildings, the traders, and the guards. I don't need permission. I just need information. The crowd seemed to sense the presence of something unnatural. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, but they dismissed it as tricks of the sun. Only the guards kept a watchful eye. Suddenly, a loud alarm rang through the city. The guards turned, rifles raised. A vertibird descended overhead, rotors chopping the air like blades. Power-armored soldiers jumped down, weapons ready. Elder Maxon sends his regards, one shouted, voice echoing across the market. Preston stiffened. Brotherhood! They came for him! Jin-Woo's shadow rippled. He didn't move his body. Only his eyes followed the soldiers. 5 of his shadow soldiers rose silently from kneeling, low-tier figures meant to test strength and reaction. They positioned themselves between Jin-Woo and the Brotherhood, a silent warning. One of the power-armored soldiers stepped forward. Identify yourself. Stand down immediately. Jin-Woo tilted his head slightly. I am Sung Jin-Woo. I do not wish to fight you, unless you force me. The soldier hesitated, glancing at his companions. Then a heavy mutant stepped into the marketplace from an alley. Super mutant scouts, apparently monitoring Jin-Woo. They roared, rushing toward the city. The Brotherhood soldiers raised their weapons. Engage them! Jin-Woo didn't move. His shadow soldiers did. Low-tier disposable soldiers surged forward, testing the mutant's strength. The mutant swung and smashed 2 of them instantly. The third leapt and stabbed through a mutant's leg. The shadows dispersed, but Jin-Woo observed every reaction. Strength exceeds normal combatants, but speed is moderate, he muttered quietly. The mutant noticed Jin-Woo and charged. He didn't dodge. He stepped forward as shadows melted into the pavement and emerged again behind him. With a single swift motion, Jin-Woo activated Shadow Exchange, reappearing behind the mutant. His daggers pierced its spine effortlessly. The mutant fell, black energy swirling from its body. Jin-Woo extended a hand. Arise. The mutant shadow rose slowly, enormous and kneeling, joining his small army. The Brotherhood soldiers froze. One whispered into his comm, Sir, it obeys him. Maxon's voice crackled over the radio. Do not engage directly. Assess the threat. Jin-Woo looked at the soldiers. You observe. You do not engage me until I choose. Piper scribbled frantically. This is insane! He just raised a mutant shadow in the middle of the city! Preston gulped. They're gonna report this. You just made every faction aware of your power. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Good. Let them know. But only when necessary. At that moment, a group of traders ran screaming from the marketplace, pointing behind Jin-Woo. Another Deathclaw, smaller than the previous one but faster, leapt from a building. It barreled toward the guards. The Brotherhood soldiers fired, lasers and minigun rounds cutting into the beast, but it shrugged off the attacks with monstrous resilience. Jin-Woo raised his hand slightly. Shadows surged from beneath the pavement. He didn't need to kill it himself. He sent 2 more low-tier shadow soldiers, nimble and fast, directly at the creature. They tested its reflexes, dodged its swipes, and attacked weak points. The Deathclaw snapped at one, scattering the shadow into fragments. Jin-Woo observed, then activated Shadow Exchange again, appearing directly above the Deathclaw and stabbing downward. Black energy erupted from the wound, the shadow forming immediately afterward. The creature's shadow rose, kneeling. Sung Jin-Woo now commanded 1 super mutant shadow, 1 behemoth shadow, 2 Deathclaw shadows, a handful of low-tier infantry shadows. The crowd gasped. Guards froze. Even the traders dared not scream. One of the power-armored soldiers finally stammered, "Sir, he's not human, he's something else." Jin-Woo looked at Preston and Piper. "Tell me about this city, about its leaders, about the Institute and anyone experimenting with these creatures." Preston swallowed. "Diamond City is just the start. You need to go deeper, underground. That's where the real problems lie." Jin-Woo nodded slightly, his shadow soldiers kneeling around him, ready for command. "Then we start with them. I will meet these scientists, and I will see what they are capable of." Above, the vertibird retreated after witnessing the display. Below, Jin-Woo's shadows quietly multiplied in the alleys and streets, kneeling silently. The Commonwealth had just been introduced to a power it had never seen before, and Sung Jin-Woo was just warming up. The air above Diamond City hummed with the rotors of a Pridwin vertibird. Sung Jin-Woo didn't flinch. His shadow soldiers, now kneeling along rooftops and alleys, melded perfectly with the city's shadows. He could feel every movement of the Brotherhood soldiers through subtle vibrations in the ground and the faintest hum of their power armor. Preston and Piper trailed behind him as he stepped onto the ruined highway leading toward the Pridwin landing zone. "They'll try to stop you," Preston whispered, hand on his rifle. "Elder Maxon doesn't know who or what you are. You need to be careful." Jin-Woo's expression remained neutral. "Careful isn't my style. Observation first, execution second." Above, the vertibird descended. Its engines roared. Soldiers leaped down, weapons trained, ready for combat. "Identify yourself," shouted one of the power-armored figures. "Step away from the city immediately." Jin-Woo lifted a hand lazily. Shadows began slipping along the ground, kneeling soldiers moving like living smoke to flank the soldiers without alerting anyone in the city. The lead power-armored soldier advanced. "I am Paladin Dance. You have 2 seconds to comply." Jin-Woo tilted his head. 2 seconds? I suppose I'll give you that, but I'm not here to fight yet, unless you force my hand." Dance raised his weapon, but the subtle twitch of the shadows around them made him hesitate. Then, as if on cue, a group of low-tier shadow soldiers surged forward, small and expendable. They engaged the Pridwin soldiers' sensors, dodging laser blasts and collapsing into smoke when hit. Dance observed quickly, realizing these were not simple creatures. They were extensions of Sung Jin-Woo himself. "Sir, they're resisting our weapons," a soldier muttered. Jin-Woo's gaze swept across them, calculating. "Indeed, they are resistant but not invincible. They are probes, nothing more." Dance's eyes narrowed. "You're not human. What are you?" "I am Sung Jin-Woo." he replied evenly. "I came here accidentally. I want information about this world. The Institute, super mutants. You can observe, but you do not engage unless I command." Dance clenched his fists. "Elder Maxon will not take kindly to this. You are a threat." Jin-Woo's eyes flicked toward the vertibird again. "Let him. I have no interest in fighting without cause, but if they strike first, they will regret it." A sudden alarm sounded from inside the Pridwin. Something, an unexpected sensor signal, triggered the Brotherhood's attention. Jin-Woo didn't move. Instead, he released another 5 low-tier shadow soldiers, sending them into the air ducts and maintenance shafts of the Pridwin silently. They were observation units. He watched the soldiers' reactions. The Brotherhood panicked subtly as sensors picked up moving shadows they could not trace. "Sir," Dance said urgently, "they're infiltrating the ship." Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. "Observation only. I will not harm anyone. Yet." Dance activated his comm. "Elder Maxon, we have a situation. Unknown entity. Multiple hostile energy signatures inside the ship." Jin-Woo allowed a slight smirk. He could feel the panic now spreading through the chain of command. Knowledge of him, even incomplete, would travel fast. He didn't need to kill anyone to make his presence known. One of his shadow soldiers, small and nimble, leaped from an air vent above Dance. Its claws tapped lightly on the floor, disappearing before anyone could react. Dance's eyes followed it. "Ooh, impossible," he muttered. Jin-Woo straightened. "You wanted to assess me. You've done that." He paused. The Pridwin's rotors roared louder as soldiers on the outskirts readied to engage. Jin-Woo extended a hand slightly, and one of the Deathclaw shadows moved into view, kneeling in a clearing, deliberately visible this time. Dance's mouth went dry. "Is that real?" "Yes," Jin-Woo replied calmly, "and if you attack, you will see how real it can get." Dance hesitated, then raised a hand in warning. "Hold fire. Do not engage him unless he strikes first." Jin-Woo turned back to Preston and Piper. "I need to know the strength and tactics of the Brotherhood before I consider further action. They are well organized. They rely on coordination and firepower, but my shadows can adapt." He glanced at the kneeling Deathclaw shadow and the low-tier soldiers scattered like sentinels across the nearby streets. "This world has no idea what it's about to face." Preston swallowed, glancing nervously at the vertibird. You can take all of them if you want." "I can," Jin-Woo said softly, eyes flicking to the sky. "But I will not yet. Observation first, strategy next, execution when necessary." From inside the Pridwin, the sensors continued to beep. Someone underground was already noticing the unusual energy patterns, likely scientists. They would begin calculations soon, attempting to understand him. Jin-Woo's mind was already working ahead, anticipating every move. The Institute, the vaults, super mutants, synths, raiders, all of them would have to face him eventually. But for now, he was a shadow on the streets of the Commonwealth, waiting and learning. And the Brotherhood would remember this day forever. The Commonwealth was quiet, too quiet. Sung Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers moved ahead in small groups, kneeling along the streets and alleys. The city's rooftops were empty of movement, but his instincts told him the real threat lay below the surface. "Preston, Piper," he said, voice calm but commanding. "Lead me to any data or location about the Institute. I need to know their operations and defenses." Preston swallowed nervously. "That's not easy. They're underground, heavily secured. The tunnels are filled with synth patrols and automated defenses. You're asking a lot, Sung Jin-Woo." "I'm capable," he said simply. Shadows stirred at his feet. kneeling and ready. They arrived at a hidden elevator shaft disguised as a collapsed building. Preston punched in the code, and a heavy metal door slid open. The faint hum of machinery and filtered air reached Sung Jin-Woo as he stepped inside. "Most humans can't survive down here for long," Preston said. "Radiation and automated security are constant threats." Jin-Woo didn't flinch. He simply observed, "I adapt." As they descended, sensors triggered. Red lights blinked along the walls. Then, from the shadows of the corridor, a group of synths appeared, sleek, humanoid, their eyes glowing faint blue. They raised rifles simultaneously. "Identification," one said. Its voice was emotionless. Jin-Woo remained still. "I am Sung Jin-Woo. I am neither friend nor foe, unless provoked." The synths didn't lower their weapons. The air suddenly charged with a strange hum, a suppression field. Sung Jin-Woo's shadows twitched, some collapsing mid-step. Commands he gave didn't respond. "So they can interfere with my control," he muttered. "Interesting." The synths advanced. Jin-Woo acted, but not with his full army. He moved like he had in his early dungeon days, old school, precise, clever. He drew 2 daggers and vanished, appearing behind a synth. He stabbed into its neck, extracting its shadow manually. Black energy surged outward, forming a kneeling shadow soldier. Another synth fired, but Jin-Woo dodged effortlessly, the bullets grazing only the edges of his cloak. He leapt, somersaulted, and dropped silently behind the suppression field. With a flick of his wrist, another shadow soldier materialized and pulled 2 synths into the wall, disintegrating them. The suppression field made large-scale shadow commands impossible, but Jin-Woo compensated. Manual extraction from each synth individually. Shadow soldiers placed one by one, observing field weakness. Precision strikes instead of overwhelming force. A warning alarm sounded deeper inside. "Intruder detected, security protocols active." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. He detected the source of the field. A cylindrical machine at the end of the corridor, humming with blue energy, wires and mechanical arms extending from it. "They're trying to limit my authority," he murmured. The synths advanced in coordinated waves, each slowed by the suppression field. Jin-Woo moved silently, shadows crawling along walls, ceiling, and floor. One by one, he neutralized synths while conserving energy. He reached the device. It emitted a pulse that caused his shadows to falter. Jin-Woo tilted his head, studying its design. "They're using frequency interference. I can bypass it physically." With a single leap, he landed atop the machine. Shadow tendrils erupted from his hands, gripping and crushing it. Sparks flew. The field collapsed. Shadows surged instantly. Kneeling figures rose from the floor, low-tier soldiers expanding into mid-tier as the environment allowed. The synths hesitated, then attacked again. But Jin-Woo had full control restored. Shadows moved like a living army, slicing, stabbing, and overwhelming the attackers before they could react. In under a minute, the corridor was littered with disabled synths. Black shadows knelt silently, forming a protective perimeter around him. Jin-Woo stood, brushing debris from his cloak. "You rely on technology to suppress what cannot be suppressed. Clever, but naive." Preston and Piper finally caught up, eyes wide. You just destroyed their field and took out the synths without even using your full army," Piper whispered. "They underestimated me," Jin-Woo said simply. "Now I know the limits of their machines, and I know where they're hiding the experiments. That is my next target." From deep within the tunnels, sensors blinked. The Institute scientists were already recalculating. They were learning about him, and soon they would try something more dangerous. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. So they want my power. Let them try. It will be entertaining. Above ground, the Commonwealth remained oblivious. Underground, the Institute prepared its defenses. And in the shadows, Sung Jin-Woo's soldiers knelt, ready for the next command. This was the beginning of a true war. The air over the glowing sea shimmered green and hazy. Radiation rose in waves, making the landscape almost surreal. Sung Jin-Woo stepped onto the cracked asphalt, his boots crunching against debris. The ground was littered with the remains of irradiated creatures and twisted metal. He crouched slightly, spreading his fingers. His shadow soldiers, low tier and kneeling, slipped silently from the darkness around him. They were small in number at first, probes to test the strength of this irradiated wasteland. Interesting, Jin-Woo murmured. Mutation levels are high. Mana seems suppressed, but still detectable. From the ruins ahead, a roar split the air. The ground trembled. Sung Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. A massive alpha deathclaw emerged from the ruins, claws scraping steel and concrete. Its eyes glowed faint red. This was not a simple predator. It was a top-tier apex of this irradiated land. Preston and Piper watched from a safe distance. "That thing! It'll tear us apart!" Preston whispered. Jin-Woo's lips curved slightly. "That's the plan." He raised a hand. "Go." 3 low-tier shadow soldiers surged forward, small and nimble. They tested the Deathclaw's reflexes, dodging its claws and slashing at its legs. The creature swatted them aside, killing one instantly. The other 2 retreated, regrouping behind debris. Jin-Woo observed. Strong, fast, aggressive. Resistance higher than the super mutants. Perfect test material. The Deathclaw roared, charging the kneeling shadows. Sung Jin-Woo didn't move. Instead, he vanished. Shadow exchange. He reappeared above the creature, daggers gleaming. With a swift downward strike, he pierced its shoulder. Black energy leaked from the wound, writhing like living smoke. The creature thrashed, trying to resist. "Arise!" Jin-Woo commanded. The Deathclaw's shadow faltered at first. This creature was unlike anything he had faced before. It fought against the extraction, dark energy surging erratically. Jin-Woo tilted his head. "Interesting. You resist." He focused, extending his authority. Black tendrils shot from the wound, writhing into the air. Slowly, the massive creature's shadow formed, kneeling obediently. The sheer scale of it dwarfed all other shadows. Preston and Piper staggered back. It obeys him?" Preston gasped. "Yes," Jin-Woo said simply. "Even apex predators can become tools." The ground trembled again. A behemoth mutant appeared from a nearby crater. Jin-Woo didn't hesitate. He summoned additional low-tier shadows as probes, observing the behemoth's attack patterns. When it swung a chunk of metal, he avoided directly. Instead, he directed shadows to stab weak points and destabilize its footing. The behemoth roared and destroyed 2 shadows instantly, but Jin-Woo remained calm. He leapt and used shadow exchange, striking the creature precisely at its neck. Black energy erupted, and the behemoth's shadow rose, kneeling beside the Deathclaw shadow. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the horizon. This wasteland is dangerous, but predictable. From behind a ruined structure, more irradiated creatures stirred. Rad scorpions, glowing ghouls, mutated dogs. He didn't need to fight personally. He sent waves of low-tier shadows to test each type, watching their reactions, learning their limits, noting resistance to extraction. One large creature, a deathly hybrid, part rad scorpion, part unknown mutation, rushed a kneeling shadow. Jin-Woo's dagger flicked into its spine, extracting the shadow manually, old-school style. "Perfect," he muttered. Even resistance can be overcome. Piper whispered wide-eyed. He's building an army from the dead. Jin-Woo glanced at her. Correct. Each shadow is a soldier. They obey fully. They do not falter, and they adapt. The Deathclaw shadow growled lowly, flexing massive claws. The behemoth shadow lifted its arms. Black smoke swirled, joining the low-tier infantry shadows kneeling around Sung Jin-Woo. From the air, Preston's calm crackled. Sir, the Brotherhood, they're watching. You just raised, what, 20, 30 monsters? Jin-Woo's eyes flicked upward. They'll know soon enough. Let them watch. Observation is as useful as force. He turned his gaze back to the Wasteland. More radiation storms were approaching, and somewhere underground the Institute would be scanning for these energy surges. He could feel them. They were already recalculating. But for now, the Alpha Deathclaw, Behemoth, and the newly kneeling shadows were under his control. A small army had emerged from the irradiated chaos, ready for orders. Jin-Woo stretched slightly. Now, we see how far this world will push me. Above, clouds glowed green. The wasteland trembled, and Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army was silently kneeling, waiting for his command to move. The Commonwealth had just been introduced to a force beyond imagination. Vault 81's doors creaked as Sung Jin-Woo and his small entourage entered. The underground vault smelled of recycled air, damp metal, and fear. Lights flickered above, powered unevenly after decades of neglect. Preston stepped forward cautiously. Vault 81 is occupied, mostly civilians. You need to be careful. Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers remained kneeling along the walls and in corners, invisible to everyone who wasn't looking closely. Low-tier shadows, silent sentinels, observing the vault's interior as Sung Jin-Woo scanned the environment. Preston, Piper, he said, voice calm. I need intel. What's happening here? Who is in control? The overseer, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard, stepped forward. Her eyes widened when she noticed Jin-Woo and the kneeling shadows. Who are you? Guards, stop him! Jin-Woo didn't move. Instead, he extended a hand slightly, letting a faint ripple of black energy wash over the shadows. They moved subtly to flank the guards, but silently without aggressive action. Stop moving, he said, voice low but firm. Shadows bent like liquid smoke, positioning themselves between him and anyone who might attack. The guards froze, uneasy. One whispered, He's controlling them. Yes, Jin-Woo replied evenly. They will not harm you, but I will defend this vault if you are threatened. The overseer trembled. Defend? From what? A loud alarm sounded from the vault security system. Someone had triggered an automated trap, an experimental synthesizer bot guarding a restricted storage area. The bot emerged, firing energy beams indiscriminately. Preston raised his rifle. We need to... Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. He flicked a hand subtly. 3 low-tier shadow soldiers melted from the walls and floor, materializing behind the bot. One lunged, dodging an energy beam and slicing the machine in half. The second stabbed through its core. The third disassembled another smaller synth nearby. The overseer gasped, clutching her clipboard. It obeys him! Observe, Jin-Woo said simply. My shadows protect, but also assess. They are mine to command. Piper whispered, wide-eyed. He's building an army, even down here! Jin-Woo crouched slightly, observing the vault's layout. I can see your defenses, your weak points, your patrols. Your people survive because they avoid danger, not because they are strong. I can fix that. A child peeked from behind a wall. Are you a monster? Jin-Woo tilted his head slightly, looking at the kid. I am neither human nor monster. I am someone who can protect you, and someone who will destroy threats. From the shadows, A mutant dog lunged unexpectedly from a maintenance tunnel. It was rabid and irradiated. One shadow soldier sprang forward, dodged its claws, and slashed through its spine. Another shadow kneeling behind it formed a defensive wall, keeping other vault dwellers safe. The overseer's eyes widened. "You saved us?" "Yes," Jin-Woo said calmly, "and I will continue to do so. But if you betray me or put your people in danger unnecessarily, you will regret it." The vault dwellers whispered amongst themselves, fear and awe mixing in equal measure. Some ran for cover, some knelt instinctively, and a few stared openly. Preston muttered, "They're beginning to understand what he can do." Jin-Woo's attention shifted to the upper levels of the vault. There are more threats underground. Machines, traps, synthetic experiments. I will handle them. He extended his hand, commanding his shadows to rise fully. Low-tier shadows multiplied silently, kneeling in formation around him. Each one radiated lethal intent, even though they remained unobtrusive to the humans around. "Stay behind me," Jin-Woo said to Preston and Piper. "Observe, this is how I protect the weak while preparing for the strong." A loud metallic groan echoed from deeper in the vault, a security door closing automatically. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Good. That is where they will test me next. I will adapt, and I will win." Vault 81 had just witnessed the first controlled demonstration of Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army in a confined human environment. Fear, awe, and hope all mixed in the air. Civilians whispered, "This is a power beyond anything we've ever seen." Above ground, factions would hear the news soon. Underground, the Institute would start recalculating energy patterns. And below all of that, Jin-Woo was learning every weakness, every possible threat, before deciding when and where to strike. The elevator doors hissed open, revealing the dimly lit corridor of the Institute's lower labs. The hum of machinery echoed off steel walls. Sung Jin-Woo stepped out, cloak brushing the floor. Shadows swirled around his feet, low-tier soldiers kneeling silently, observing every detail. Preston's voice was barely audible. "This is it. All security systems here are automated. Cameras, turrets, sensors. The works." Jin-Woo's eyes scanned the corridor, absorbing the patterns of light and sound. "Sensors," he murmured. "They are trying to detect energy anomalies. They know something is coming." Piper whispered, scribbling furiously. "They have no idea how fast he adapts." Ahead, a security gate slid open with a hiss. Two synths emerged, laser rifles raised. Sung Jin-Woo extended a hand subtly. "Observe." 3 low-tier shadow soldiers melted into the walls and floor. They slipped around the synths, moving like living smoke. When one synth fired, the shadow dodged effortlessly, slipping between the laser beams and stabbing the synth in the spine. Black energy erupted, forming a kneeling shadow soldier. The second synth fired again. A shadow soldier lunged, grabbing its wrist, letting the energy bolt harmlessly dissipate through its form. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Energy weapons do not disrupt my soldiers fully, but they can harm them individually." Noted. As they advanced, a low hum filled the corridor. Sensors triggered a localized suppression field. Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers faltered. Some collapsed mid-step. Commands lagged. "So they've prepared for me," he murmured. "They can interfere with my control." "Interesting." Preston gulped. "Sir, your shadows, they're faltering." Jin-Woo crouched slightly, observing the suppression patterns. He raised a dagger. "I'll adapt manually." He leapt forward, old-school tactics. No sweeping army commands, just precision strikes, speed, and observation. A synth turned to fire at him. Jin-Woo vanished mid-step. Shadow exchange. He reappeared behind it, stabbing directly into the neck. Black energy erupted. The kneeling shadow formed immediately, obeying despite the field. Another synth fired. He rolled along the wall, ducked, and stabbed it mid-air, extracting a shadow manually. "Old-school techniques still work," he muttered. "They cannot suppress manual extraction. They tried to control my army globally, but not me personally." The corridor opened into a large lab filled with machines. Cylindrical tubes contained mutated creatures, part ghoul, part synthetic augmentation, thrashing under restraints. A pulsating device in the center hummed, sending out waves that dampened the energy his shadows relied on. Jin-Woo paused at the entrance. This is their test site, and their weapon. The pulsating field grew stronger, shaking the shadows. Commands that had worked instinctively no longer responded as fully. A low-tier shadow soldier tried to rise and fell mid-motion, dispersing into mist. He narrowed his eyes. "So they're trying to contain me entirely. Clever." Several scientists and technicians appeared from behind consoles. One shouted, "Target identified! Energy surge is anomalous! Activate the suppression field fully!" Jin-Woo's lips curved into a slight smile. "They're trying to extract me. They don't understand what they're dealing with." The suppression field intensified. Shadows trembled, some flickering, some kneeling but unable to move. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked around the room. Multiple turrets, armed synths, and the pulsating device formed a perimeter around him. He didn't panic. Instead, he crouched slightly, studying the layout. "They want a conventional fight. I will give them unconventional answers." With a flick of his hand, one low-tier shadow soldier slipped along the ceiling duct silently. Another melted into the floor. They began sabotaging equipment, cutting power lines, and distracting the synths. Jin-Woo moved into the open corridor of the lab. A synth fired, laser energy grazing his cloak. He leapt, dagger in hand, stabbing through its head. Black energy surged. Shadow soldier formed, kneeling beside him. The pulsating device's interference field reacted violently, flickering. Jin-Woo noticed the pattern. It suppressed simultaneous commands. If he sent multiple shadows at once, they faltered. If he focused on one extraction at a time, the field's effect was negligible. "Old school," he muttered, one by one. He struck the next synth manually. Its shadow formed. Another and another. The field flared each time, but he adapted. Instead of commanding the army globally, he became a conductor of individual extractions, moving with the speed of thought. The scientists realized their experiment was failing. One shouted, "It's adapting! The energy pulses aren't stopping it! Contain it!" Jin-Woo paused for a moment, then leapt toward the pulsating device itself. Shadow soldiers followed in small groups, sabotaging the lab's power conduits. Sparks erupted, alarms blared. He landed atop the device. It emitted a violent pulse, attempting to disrupt him, but Jin-Woo ignored it. With his bare hands, he crushed the device. Black energy surged from it, and the suppression field collapsed instantly. Immediately, his shadow army expanded in the lab. Kneeling soldiers rose fully, forming an impenetrable wall around him. Low-tier soldiers surged toward the synths and turrets. High-tier soldiers moved strategically, cutting off exits and neutralizing automated defenses. The scientists froze. One stammered, "Impossible! He destroyed the suppression field manually, and now he's controlling all of them." Jin-Woo's gaze swept across the room. Shadows flexed and shifted, kneeling at first, now ready to strike at his command. The lab was under his control. Preston and Piper moved behind him, awe written across their faces. Preston muttered, "Sir, that was incredible. You destroyed the field and your shadows." "Yes," Jin-Woo said calmly, eyes scanning the corridor for any remaining threats. "They cannot suppress me physically. They tried to stop the army globally, but they never accounted for manual command. Always remember, observe, adapt, execute." Piper whispered, You made every one of their traps useless." "They learned something," Jin-Woo replied. "And now, so have I. Every experiment, every device, every weakness has been noted. The Institute underestimated me. That will not happen again." From deeper within the lab, he sensed movement. Heavier, more complex, intelligent patterns. The scientists were recalculating, preparing new experiments to study him, to suppress him more effectively next time. Jin-Woo tilted his head. "They want my power. Let them try. It will be interesting to see how far they will go." Above ground, the Commonwealth remained unaware of the chaos unfolding underground. Inside the Institute lab, shadows knelt silently. Some low-tier, some mid-tier, others formed from the synths themselves. Every movement was controlled by Sung Jin-Woo's thoughts. Precise, lethal, unstoppable. He stepped forward, moving through the lab. Turrets and synths fell silently as shadow soldiers neutralized them efficiently. Each shadow acted independently but in perfect coordination. "This world is dangerous," he muttered quietly, "but dangerous is manageable." He turned to Preston and Piper. "We have intel. We know where the experiments are, and I now know the limitations of their technology. Next time, they will not even reach the point of testing me." Piper scribbled furiously, whispering to Preston, He's unbeatable, and he doesn't even need to fight fully." Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers moved into formation around the exit of the lab. He extended a hand slightly, causing a ripple that froze the scientists in place, not deadly but a clear warning. "Leave now," he said. "Take your research and go. Any attempt to interfere with me again, and you will not survive." The scientists scrambled, retreating through side corridors as alarms blared. The pulsating device lay destroyed, sparks raining across the floor. Jin-Woo turned back to the hallway. Shadows knelt silently. Observation complete. Adaptation complete. Execution was optional, but preparation was perfect. "The Institute has been noted," he murmured. "Now we proceed to the next phase." Above ground, the Commonwealth would begin hearing rumors of a being whose shadow army moved through walls, crushed machines, and reduced synths to kneeling servants. Underground, the Institute recalculated. Their suppression experiments failed entirely. And in the middle of it all, Sung Jin-Woo stood calm, full power, fully aware of his unmatched potential, and ready to escalate whenever necessary. The hum of the Institute's central chamber was deafening. Sung Jin-Woo stepped through the reinforced steel doors, shadow soldiers kneeling along the walls like living armor. This was no ordinary lab. This was the heart of the Institute, where their most advanced experiments and suppressive technologies were deployed. Preston whispered behind him, "Sir, this is the inner sanctum. Nobody who goes here leaves easily." Jin-Woo's eyes scanned the room, noting the intricate network of energy conduits, pulsating machines, and synth sentries patrolling the area. "They've prepared for me." The scientists were waiting. Rows of consoles flickered with energy readings, and towering machines, spherical, metallic, with blue pulsating cores, sent waves through the chamber. The very air seemed to resist Sung Jin-Woo's power. One of the lead scientists spoke over a loudspeaker. "Sung Jin-Woo, you are now within our containment field. Your energy will be neutralized. Surrender, or be terminated. Jin-Woo tilted his head slightly. Containment. Interesting. The suppression field activated. Blue pulses rippled outward. His shadows faltered mid-step, twitching uncontrollably. Commands lagged. Shadows collapsed where they had been kneeling, some dispersing into smoke, unable to maintain form. So this is their trump card, Jin-Woo muttered. He crouched slightly, analyzing the pulse patterns. Frequency interference, suppression field, designed to neutralize global shadow command. The synths advanced, weapons raised. They moved in coordinated waves, taking advantage of the field's interference. Even low-tier shadows hesitated, moving jerkily, responding slowly. Preston whispered urgently, "Sir, your army, they're..." Faltering. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Then we adapt." He drew his daggers. Old-school tactics, no sweeping global commands, no mass deployment. Each shadow would be handled individually. Precision, speed, and manual extraction. The first synth fired. Jin-Woo vanished mid-step. Shadow exchange. He reappeared behind it, stabbing into its neck. Black energy erupted, forming a kneeling shadow soldier despite the suppression field. Another synth aimed, but Jin-Woo rolled along the wall, dagger flashing. Cutting through the machine's core, a shadow soldier formed, kneeling beside him. "Old-school methods bypass global suppression," he muttered. "They cannot suppress me personally." A group of scientists activated additional devices. Pulsing cylinders extended from the walls, each emitting stronger interference. Shadows that tried to rise staggered and fell. Even mid-tier shadows hesitated. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed further. They want to control my army indirectly. Clever, but they underestimated me." He leapt onto one of the cylinders. Sparks flew. The device emitted a high-frequency pulse, attempting to destabilize his personal control. Jin-Woo crushed it with his bare hands. The field flickered, then collapsed. Shadows surged immediately, kneeling, then rising fully. The synths hesitated. They had counted on the suppression, and now they faced a fully restored army. Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. Observation complete. Execution time optional, but strategy demands preparation first. He flicked his wrist. Shadows moved strategically, disabling turrets and neutralizing synths one by one. Each movement was precise, lethal, and controlled. Even high-tier shadows were deployed individually to avoid triggering any residual suppression. From the consoles, alarms screamed. Scientists shouted, "Impossible! He's bypassed the field, and he's controlling all of them individually." Jin-Woo's voice echoed calmly. "You rely on technology to limit what cannot be contained. That was naive." Another wave of synths entered from a side corridor. Each moved with speed, precision, and intelligence, attempting to flank him. Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers engaged, testing their strength carefully. 2 fell to laser fire. One high-tier shadow leapt and sliced through a synth in mid-air. Jin-Woo noted each weakness, calculating the limits of the suppression technology. "They're still learning. That is good. It will make the next phase easier." The lead scientist activated the chamber's final device, a massive orb surrounded by scaffolding and pulsing with blinding blue energy. The entire room began to vibrate. The orb's field was powerful enough to affect even Jin-Woo's personal physical abilities, slowing his reflexes slightly. Jin-Woo crouched, observing. Now this is interesting. He moved like a predator, striking one synth manually. Shadow extraction proceeded individually. With each kill, black energy surged, forming kneeling soldiers. The suppression orb's pulse intensified, attempting to disrupt him further. Shadows trembled, some dispersing. "They underestimated human ingenuity," he muttered. He leapt onto the orb's scaffolding, scaling it with speed impossible for normal humans. Sparks flew as the orb attempted to repel him. He struck the core with his daggers. Black energy erupted from his hands, shattering the containment orb. The suppression field collapsed entirely. Shadows surged instantly, kneeling then rising fully responsive to his command. Jin-Woo stepped down. The lab was littered with disabled synths and kneeling shadows. The scientists froze, panic-stricken. One stammered, It shouldn't be possible! The energy! The field! Jin-Woo's eyes swept the room. You attempted to neutralize a force you could not control. Observation complete. Weaknesses recorded. Now the army is mine, fully. He extended his hand slightly. Shadows spread, forming a wall around him, protective yet menacing. Any aggressive movement would trigger a lethal response. Piper whispered to Preston, I can't believe it. He just destroyed their ultimate trap. Jin-Woo's gaze turned to the scientists. Tell me, where are the experiments designed to counter me? Where are the synths enhanced to suppress shadow extraction? The lead scientist stammered. We can't. It's top security. Jin-Woo's lips curved. Top security is meaningless if I am the one in control. All experiments will fail against me. You will retreat now, or you will be eliminated. He flicked his wrist. Shadows moved in precise formations, disabling machinery without harming humans. Kneeling soldiers surrounded the scientists, a silent and lethal warning. The suppression field had been their trump card, but now it was nothing more than rubble on the floor. Jin-Woo turned to Preston. They learned to suppress globally. I adapted manually. Observe, adapt, execute, always. Preston swallowed hard. Sir, that was beyond anything I've ever seen. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. They will try again. Next time I will anticipate, and I will overwhelm them before they can activate anything. The Institute's inner sanctum had been neutralized. Shadows knelt around him, fully under his command. Low-tier, mid-tier, even extracted synths now obeyed him. The Commonwealth would hear whispers soon of a force unstoppable, adaptive, and intelligent. He took a deep breath. This was a test of strength and strategy. They underestimated me. Now they know what it means to face someone beyond their comprehension. Above ground, the Commonwealth would begin hearing rumors of the Institute's sudden failure. Underground, the scientists would be recalculating, planning new experiments to understand this unprecedented power. And in the middle of it all, Sung Jin-Woo stood calm, commanding a kneeling shadow army, fully aware that he had surpassed the Institute's highest expectations and fully prepared for whatever would come next. The midpoint had passed. The Institute now knew his existence. His power had been challenged and restored. But the war was far from over, and Sung Jin-Woo had only just begun. The Institute's underground lab lay in ruins. Sparks and smoke spiraled from broken consoles, shredded synth bodies littered the floor, and the massive suppression devices lay shattered. Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army stood fully formed, kneeling silently around him, a perfect wall of lethal obedience. Preston and Piper followed closely, eyes wide. Sir, they're gone? Preston whispered. The Institute, it's empty. Yes, Jin-Woo said, voice calm. They've withdrawn. Observation complete. Weaknesses recorded, and now the world knows I exist. Above ground, in Diamond City, rumors were already spreading. Traders spoke in hushed tones about a dark figure controlling shadows, raising even death claws to kneel. Whispers of vault dwellers who had glimpsed him underground spread quickly. Vault 81 residents shared their accounts cautiously with other vaults, describing someone who could control the dead and the mutated alike. Sir, Piper said, scribbling notes furiously. "Everyone's talking about you. Vault dwellers, raiders, even some super mutants in the glowing sea. They all sense it. Your shadow army, they've never seen anything like it." Jin-Woo's gaze swept across the horizon. He could feel the energy signatures of the Institute scientists recalculating, some hiding deeper underground, others attempting to restore containment technology. But he had already memorized every device, every trap, every countermeasure. "They'll try again," he muttered, "but they will fail." From the Commonwealth's distance, Elder Maxon observed through communications and remote sensors aboard the Pridwin. Paladin Dance beside him frowned. "Sir, that thing in Diamond City, it's unlike anything we've faced. No power armor, no conventional weapon. It commands monsters and humans alike." Maxon's voice tightened. "Prepare a full report. We need options. If it's a threat to the Brotherhood, we cannot ignore it. But if it is controllable..." Back underground, Jin-Woo approached the broken Institute consoles. Shadow tendrils swept over the terminals, absorbing data fragments. Synth shadows kneeling nearby transmitted encrypted information back to him, allowing him to understand the Institute's operations better than they did themselves. Preston whispered nervously, "Sir, those shadows, they're absorbing the tech too?" "They are," Jin-Woo said. "Any data, any experimental knowledge becomes part of my observation. Their mistakes, their weaknesses, mine now." Suddenly, a group of Vault 81 dwellers, led by the Overseer, cautiously descended into the lab via emergency stairwell. They froze at the sight of the Shadow Army. One child whispered, trembling, It's him. He saved us." Jin-Woo looked down at them, expression neutral. "Stay behind me. You are safe. Any threat approaching this vault will be neutralized." The Overseer stepped forward. We don't understand. How can one person do this?" "Observation, adaptation, execution," Jin-Woo replied simply. "And understanding weakness. That is all it takes." Meanwhile, in the glowing sea, Deathclaw and Behemoth shadows prowled the radioactive wasteland, silently observing potential threats. Even rad scorpions and feral ghouls that had previously been aggressive now remained kneeling under his command. The Commonwealth had never experienced a force like this before. Preston leaned close to Jin-Woo. "Sir, the factions. They'll start mobilizing against you. The Brotherhood, the Minutemen, raiders. Some might even want to ally. Others will fear you." Jin-Woo's eyes flicked toward the horizon, sensing the distant energy surges of Institute scientists recalculating their suppression attempts. Let them. Observation first, execution later. From deep inside the glowing sea, a radroach colony stirred. Shadow soldiers emerged silently, kneeling, forming a defensive perimeter. Jin-Woo tested their obedience, issuing small commands. They moved in perfect synchronization, even under the radioactive pressure. Piper scribbled frantically, "Sir, they're actually afraid of you now. Everyone, Vault dwellers, Wastelanders, even the Brotherhood, they're witnessing your presence, and they don't know if it's protection or annihilation." Jin-Woo tilted his head slightly. "Both," he said softly. "I will protect the weak, but I destroy those who challenge me unnecessarily. That is the balance of control." From Diamond City, a lone Brotherhood scout observing remotely via drone reported back, "Sir, the Shadow Army, it's not just undead or mutated, it's intelligent. They're reacting as if directed by a conscious mind. Fully tactical, adaptive." Preston whispered, "Sir, the world, it's beginning to fear you." Jin-Woo's expression remained neutral, almost cold. "Good. Fear keeps them alive. Complacency kills them." The Vault dwellers, still behind him, whispered among themselves. Some knelt instinctively, others hid. Even a few tried to leave quietly, sensing the power around him. But Jin-Woo did not move toward them threateningly. He allowed them freedom, as long as they stayed out of danger. Suddenly, a ghoul scientist emerged from a side lab terrified, muttering about the man who controls life and death. He froze at the sight of Jin-Woo. "You will retreat," Jin-Woo said calmly. "Take your calculations and leave. Attempting to suppress me again will not end well." The ghoul stammered and backed away, disappearing into the deeper tunnels. Jin-Woo turned back to Preston and Piper. "Observation complete. The Institute will rebuild, factions will react, but I now control the battlefield even from a distance. Shadows are everywhere." Piper whispered, awestruck. "Sir, you're everywhere." Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. "I am everywhere because I choose to be. I am limited only by what I allow myself to be limited by. This world will adjust to me, or it will be crushed." The Commonwealth felt it already. Traders, vault dwellers, Brotherhood patrols, even wandering raiders. Whispers spread faster than fire in dry grass. The man who commanded deathclaws, behemoths, and shadows of the dead was real. Jin-Woo crouched slightly, scanning the horizon. Now begins the period of consolidation. I will observe the world's response. Factions will attempt maneuvers. Raiders will test the limits. And the Institute, they will come prepared next time. He extended his hand slightly. Shadows across the lab shifted and kneeling soldiers spread outward into nearby corridors, forming patrols and observation points. He had already begun projecting influence beyond this room, even beyond the vault, into the Wasteland. Preston whispered, "Sir, they're going to attack eventually, and they'll bring everything they've got." Jin-Woo's gaze hardened. "Then they will see why none can match me. Observation first, strategy second, execution ultimate." The vault dwellers slowly began to understand. Protection came from fear, from absolute control. And the man in the shadows, Sung Jin-Woo, was far beyond any human, mutant, or synthetic threat they had ever seen. The Commonwealth had shifted, power had a new definition. And Sung Jin-Woo stood at the center of it all, shadows kneeling, deathclaws and behemoths ready, rad scorpions and ghouls under command, vault dwellers behind him, and the Institute watching from afar, fully aware that their suppression devices were meaningless. The midpoint had passed. Factions would react. The Institute would escalate. But Sung Jin-Woo had already calculated their every possible move, and the battlefield was now his. And for the first time, the world feared him, and yet, unknowingly, relied on him. The Commonwealth was stirring. The whispers of a man who commanded shadows, deathclaws, behemoths, and even ghouls had reached every corner, from the Minutemen outposts to raider encampments to the Brotherhood of Steel's observation posts. On the outskirts of a ruined highway, a small Brotherhood scout team led by Paladin Dance crouched, using a broken communications array to monitor energy surges emanating from the glowing sea and Vault 81. "Sir, the readings. They're unlike anything we've ever seen," Dance muttered into his headset. "The energy patterns, they're controlled, intelligent." Elder Maxon's voice came through the comm. "Understood. Observe only. Do not engage. Determine the scope of this threat. If it proves hostile, we respond. But we cannot risk full engagement until we know what we're dealing with." Meanwhile, a group of raiders had taken advantage of the chaos in the glowing sea to scout for valuable tech. Their lookout, perched atop a rusted car, froze mid-sentence. "Boss, those aren't just monsters. That Deathclaw, it's kneeling. And there, another one. Look at the shadows. They're like soldiers." Their leader, a grizzled raider with cybernetic implants, squinted at the distant forms. "Get closer." If they're guarding anything valuable, we take it. If not, maybe we recruit them. But the moment they stepped further into the green-hazed wasteland, Sung Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers detected them immediately. He stood atop a rocky ridge, observing, hands casually at his sides. His low-tier shadows melted along the cracked earth and jagged rocks, spreading like a living mist. Mid-tier and high-tier shadows, Deathclaw, Behemoth, even a pair of rad scorpions kneeling in place, were positioned strategically to prevent unnecessary engagement. Jin-Woo's voice was calm but firm. Do not harm them unless provoked. Observe, report. The raiders advanced cautiously, unaware that each step was being watched by multiple kneeling shadows, positioned to intercept without detection. One raider suddenly kicked a loose piece of metal, triggering a faint noise. A shadow soldier shifted imperceptibly, just enough to block their line of sight. Another raider yelped as a rad scorpion shadow's tail brushed the ground near them, silent, threatening, but restrained. The raider leader gritted his teeth. What the hell is going on? Are those monsters? Preston, observing from a safe distance behind Jin-Woo, whispered, Sir, they're testing you, or maybe trying to bait you. Jin-Woo's gaze was calm, analytical. Observation first, execution second. Let them feel fear, but not death yet. Suddenly, a small Brotherhood recon drone entered the area, scanning for energy patterns. One of Jin-Woo's mid-tier shadows, a kneeling Deathclaw shadow, shifted subtly, moving with such speed that it blocked the drone's sensors with black smoke. The drone's cameras briefly flickered before it spun out of control and crashed into the wasteland dirt. Dancer's voice echoed from the comms, tension in his tone. Sir, the readings, it's reacting. It's not just energy, it's alive. Commanding creatures, shadows, something beyond comprehension. Jin-Woo crouched slightly, extending a hand subtly. Low-tier shadows emerged from the mist, forming a semicircle between him and the approaching factions. They were a clear warning. Any aggression would be met with immediate force. One of the raiders stumbled backward. It's controlling everything. How? Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. I will not harm you if you retreat, but if you attack, your survival will be unlikely. The raiders hesitated. One tried to fire a gun. A shadow soldier moved with blinding speed, disarming the raider and snapping the weapon in half. The others froze, realizing they were outmatched but not understanding the scale. From the ridge, Jin-Woo observed, noting their tactics, communication, and hesitation. Intelligence is preserved under fear. They will not act recklessly next time. Piper whispered, amazed. Sir, you're controlling the battlefield without even touching them. Yes, Jin-Woo said softly. Observation and presence are as powerful as execution. Meanwhile, a small group of Vault 81 dwellers who had followed him cautiously underground observed through surveillance monitors. Their whispers carried awe and fear. One child asked, He can control anything, even the Deathclaw and ghouls. Yes, Preston whispered, everything kneels or fights as he wills. Jin-Woo's focus shifted toward the horizon. The Institute's energy pulses were recalculating, adjusting to his field. Brotherhood sensors were flickering from a distance. Raiders were regrouping, terrified yet curious. The world is learning my name, he murmured, and they will respond in force. That is expected. Observation complete. Strategy begins. A rad scorpion shadow shifted, blocking a Brotherhood scout team trying to get closer. A Deathclaw shadow loomed in the distance, its form massive but kneeling, threatening but restrained. Even the Wasteland's predators sensed the order and remained under his silent command. The raiders decided to retreat, muttering in fear about the dark man who commands monsters and shadows. The Brotherhood team, sensing energy spikes, cautiously withdrew, reporting everything back to Maxon. Jin-Woo crouched, analyzing the fallout. Factions are testing the limits. They will probe again. And when they do, I will observe, adapt, and execute. Preston leaned closer. Sir, you're changing everything. Raiders, Vault Dwellers, Brotherhood, they're all reacting to you. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the glowing sea. Let them react. Observation feeds strategy. The Institute will learn next, and then the others. The battlefield is mine before they even move. From the horizon, a faint, muttered howl of ghouls echoed. Shadows shifted to observe. Even the wild creatures of the Wasteland, sensing his presence, stayed within the perimeter of his control. Piper scribbled frantically, Sir, the scale of your power, it's beyond comprehension. They're terrified and in awe at the same time. Jin-Woo's expression was calm, composed. That is the balance of fear and respect. Those who observe survive. Those who attack perish. Strategy will continue. Patience is key, and the world will bend around me. The Commonwealth had just received its first live demonstration of controlled power beyond imagination. Raiders fled, Brotherhood scouts retreated, and Vault Dwellers watched in awe from hidden perches. And somewhere deep underground, the Institute recalculated, sensing the field, wondering how one human could command shadows, monsters, and intelligent creatures simultaneously, and still adapt to suppression. Jin-Woo's shadow army stood fully formed, kneeling, watching, silent. Observation, adaptation, execution. The cycle was unbroken. Let them watch, he muttered. Let them test the waters. I will control the battlefield even before they strike. The Commonwealth's factions had been warned. A force unlike any they had faced was now among them, calculating, observing, and preparing. And Sung Jin-Woo, at full strength, remained the invisible predator commanding everything and everyone, ready for the first real clash. The glowing sea glowed an ominous green under the clouded sky, the wind carrying the faint hum of residual radiation. Sung Jin-Woo stood atop a jagged ridge, shadow soldiers kneeling around him in disciplined formation. Low-tier shadows scattered along the rocks, mid-tier shadows blended into ruined buildings, and the massive Deathclaw and Behemoth shadows towered like living fortresses. Preston whispered behind him, voice tense. Sir, the Institute, they're coming. Energy readings are spiking. They're deploying reinforcements, machines, synths, maybe even experimental humans. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Observation first, adaptation second, execution as necessary. He spread his hand slightly, and the shadows stirred, rising just enough to signal readiness without revealing full force. From underground tunnels and hidden chambers, the Institute unleashed a coordinated counterattack. Pulsating devices emerged, creating interference fields designed to suppress shadow soldiers. Advanced synth units, sleek, humanoid, and armed with laser rifles, flanked the field. Energy beams carved the landscape, sending fragments of irradiated rock tumbling. The first wave advanced cautiously, under the illusion that they were stealthy. Jin-Woo's mid-tier shadow soldiers, formed from Deathclaws and Behemoths, shifted instantly to block their approach. One Deathclaw shadow lunged silently, forcing a synth to retreat. Another grabbed a laser turret, ripping it free from the ground and crushing it with a single swing of its massive claws. Piper gasped, scribbling rapidly. Sir, you're not even moving, and they're being destroyed. Yes, Jin-Woo said calmly. Observation, positioning, and timing are sufficient. Full engagement is unnecessary unless provoked. Despite the suppression devices, Jin-Woo began deploying shadows in an old-school manual style. He leapt forward, dagger in hand, and extracted shadows from individual synth units one by one. Each extraction created a new kneeling shadow soldier that immediately followed his precise commands. The interference fields flared violently as he worked. Some shadows faltered mid-step, but Jin-Woo adapted. Each extraction was executed individually, bypassing the global suppression. "They've improved their tech," he muttered, "but old-school precision still works." The Institute scientists appeared behind protective consoles, observing energy feedback. One shouted, "They're bypassing the suppression! How? Every protocol fails!" Jin-Woo ignored them, focusing on the battlefield. From the glowing sea itself, mutated rat scorpions, ghouls, and irradiated dogs stirred, sensing the power of his army. One large deathclaw shadow flexed its claws, kneeling but radiating deadly intent. The low-tier shadows surged, forming a semicircle that cut off all access routes. A squadron of advanced synths approached, their weapons glowing with energy designed to pierce armor and disrupt mana-like energies. Jin-Woo smiled faintly. They underestimate adaptability. He leapt into the fray. Shadow soldiers followed his precise individual commands. A Deathclaw shadow grabbed one of the larger synths and slammed it into the ground. A kneeling shadow intercepted a laser blast, absorbing it harmlessly, while another sliced through its opponent's energy core. From the horizon, energy pulses from a new Institute device intensified. This one was larger, designed specifically to suppress mid-tier and high-tier shadows. The black mist of his army faltered slightly. Even the Deathclaw shadow hesitated, claws twitching. Jin-Woo tilted his head. "So this is the real test." He vanished mid-step, shadow exchange, appearing behind the pulsating device. Sparks erupted as he drove his daggers into the core. Black energy surged, forming a massive kneeling shadow in place of the suppressed soldiers. The device exploded in a flash of blue light, and the field collapsed completely. The Institute scientists screamed in disbelief. "Impossible! All our data, our devices, they're destroyed, and he controls them fully." Jin-Woo stood atop the rubble, shadows kneeling perfectly around him, fully restored. Observation complete, execution optional. Suddenly, from deeper in the Wasteland, a group of raiders and Minutemen approached, attempting to investigate the chaos. One raider fired a gun, a feeble attempt to test the shadow's defenses. In a blink, a low-tier shadow appeared, disarmed the raider, and shoved him back without harming him. Another shadow silently removed a weapon from a Minuteman patrol, kneeling with it as a warning. Preston whispered, awestruck, "Sir, they're not even touching anyone, yet they're completely neutralized." Jin-Woo's expression was calm. Fear and control can coexist. They will test, and they will learn. High above, Brotherhood scouts tried to get closer. Dance spoke into comms. "Sir, they're controlling everything. The Deathclaw, the Behemoth, the Rad Scorpions. It's tactical, adaptive, fully coordinated." Jin-Woo's lips curved slightly. "Let them observe. Observation is a weapon itself." Meanwhile, in Vault 81, Overseer and residents watched via secure terminals as black shadows moved silently across the wasteland, stopping aggression without even engaging fully. The child whispered, He's everywhere." "Yes," Preston muttered, "and he sees everything, controls everything." Back on the battlefield, the Institute unleashed a final wave. Synthetic beasts, human-augmented soldiers, and energy-laced traps. The suppression field was at full power. Even mid-tier shadows struggled, some dispersing. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Now I will show them the difference between suppression and defeat." He extended his hand. Shadows surged, low tier, mid-tier, and even high tier extracted manually from the battlefield. The Deathclaw shadow roared lowly, kneeling but ready. The behemoth shadow slammed its fists into the ground, shaking the area. The rad scorpion shadows flexed their tails. The ghouls crouched strategically, all waiting for a single command. Then he gave it. A silent wave of black energy erupted, sweeping across the battlefield. Shadows moved as one, dismembering machines, disarming soldiers, and neutralizing traps. Energy pulses from the Institute devices were absorbed, converted, and redirected by his shadow army. Preston gasped. "Sir, that was execution," Jin-Woo said simply. "Complete." The Institute retreated entirely, forced to regroup in deeper, secure zones. Their devices destroyed, their synths captured as shadows, and their plans recorded in Jin-Woo's mind. Jin-Woo surveyed the wasteland. Raiders fled, Minutemen paused cautiously, and Brotherhood scouts backed away in awe. Vault dwellers watched silently, understanding the scale of what had just occurred. "Observation, adaptation, execution," he muttered, stepping forward. "The battlefield is mine, even before the enemy moves. Let them rebuild, let them prepare. Next time I will decide the outcome before they even act." He gestured slightly, and shadows formed a protective perimeter around the battlefield, kneeling but ready. Deathclaw and behemoth shadows flexed, rad scorpions shifted, and ghouls crouched in anticipation. Even the wasteland's predators seemed aware, cautious, and obedient. Piper scribbled frantically. "Sir, the Institute, the Wasteland, even Vault dwellers, they all know now, you are unstoppable." Jin-Woo's eyes scanned the horizon. "Unstoppable only because I allow myself to be. Observation first, strategy second, execution ultimate." Above, green clouds churned over the glowing sea. The Commonwealth had witnessed the full scale of Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army for the first time, and even the Institute scientists, watching remotely through hidden energy sensors, could only calculate and prepare. They had no answer. The midpoint was complete. The world had tested him. And Sung Jin-Woo had not just survived, it had bowed before him. The Commonwealth was alive with tension. Word had spread fast, shadow soldiers moving like liquid across the glowing sea, Deathclaws kneeling silently, rad scorpions obeying, and ghouls and synths under command. Raiders whispered in fear, Vault dwellers shared stories of a dark protector, and even the Brotherhood of Steel debated strategy from the Pridwin. High above, Elder Maxon scowled at the monitors. "Dance, this isn't just a threat. It's a force beyond comprehension." The Institute underestimated him, and so did we. Paladin Dance muttered, gripping his rifle. "Sir, what if he decides we're obstacles?" Maxon's jaw tightened. "We'll monitor, and if necessary, strike. But he's far stronger than any Brotherhood unit we can deploy right now. Observation only, for now." Meanwhile, the Institute had retreated to underground bunkers. Their scientists frantically recalculated suppression technologies, attempting to understand Sung Jin-Woo's manual shadow extraction technique. One lead scientist muttered, panicked, "We destroyed every field. He adapted instantly. Even Deathclaws and behemoths. Kneeling. He's beyond containment." Another added, "We need new protocols. If he discovers the full extent of our secrets, everything will be compromised." Above ground, the Wasteland factions began repositioning. Raiders who had witnessed the shadows whispered to Minutemen patrols. Vault dwellers traveled cautiously between settlements. Even wandering super mutants, sensing the control of the shadows, avoided certain zones entirely. Jin-Woo, standing atop a rocky ridge overlooking the radioactive plains, observed all of this with calm detachment. His shadow soldiers spread in controlled perimeters, kneeling yet ever ready. Deathclaws flexed their massive claws, behemoths shifted their weight subtly, rad scorpions twitched in anticipation, and ghouls crouched strategically. Preston leaned close. "Sir, the world's factions, they're all responding. Raiders retreating, Minutemen in alert, Brotherhood observing, the Institute preparing, everything is escalating." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Good. Escalation allows observation, and observation informs execution." Piper scribbled furiously. "Sir, even Vault 81 residents, they're scared, but they're also relying on you now. They saw what you did in the labs and the Wasteland. Some of them, they don't just fear you, they trust you." He glanced toward the vault, noting the Overseer and residents moving cautiously, safe within the perimeter of shadows. "Trust is irrelevant. Observation is constant. Protection conditional, execution absolute if necessary." In the glowing sea, a small group of raiders tried to regroup, whispering about the man who commands monsters and shadows. One glanced nervously at the horizon, where the kneeling Deathclaw shadows and the black mist of low-tier soldiers were barely visible. A rad scorpion shadow shifted, tail curling subtly. The raiders froze. A ghoulish shadow crouched low, ready to spring. Even wild super mutants observed cautiously from a distance. Jin-Woo's presence projected fear without movement, control without aggression. "They test me," he muttered quietly. "Let them. They will learn their limits before they even engage." From Vault 81, Overseer observed remotely via emergency cameras. She whispered to a technician, "It's impossible. No human should be able to control Deathclaws, and yet they're kneeling. And those shadows, they respond instantly." Preston muttered, "Sir, even the Institute's reinforcements won't risk a direct attack now. They've seen what happens when they try. Your strategy? It's dominating everything." Jin-Woo crouched slightly, extending his senses across the wasteland. He noted patterns of movement. Raiders attempting to encroach, Minutemen patrols adjusting, Brotherhood scouts hovering in surveillance. Each movement was recorded, analyzed, and stored. "The battlefield is larger than I anticipated," he said softly. "But everything falls into pattern eventually. Observation first, adaptation second, execution ultimate." Suddenly, a new energy signature appeared in the glowing sea. A rogue group of super mutants, augmented by radiation, moving aggressively toward a Minutemen settlement. They were strong, but uncoordinated. Jin-Woo extended a hand. Low-tier shadows rose instantly, forming a defensive barrier around the Minutemen. Mid-tier shadows moved to intercept the super mutants. The Deathclaw shadow and Behemoth shadow positioned strategically, blocking potential escape routes. Within seconds, the super mutants were subdued, kneeling, disarmed, and neutralized without fatalities. The Minutemen observed in awe and relief. One soldier whispered, "It's like he's controlling everything. He's unstoppable." Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. "Fear and order. Those who test me survive. Those who resist perish. Execution is a statement, not chaos." Elsewhere, raiders who had fled began planning ambushes, hoping to challenge him indirectly. Even as they gathered weapons and traps, the shadow soldiers monitored their movements. Each plan was observed, recorded, and noted for future analysis. Preston whispered, "Sir, they're already afraid to attack directly. They're trying everything. Raiders, mutants, even Brotherhood scouts." "Yes," Jin-Woo said calmly. "Observation is sufficient. They will adjust their strategy based on perception, not reality. That is the power of fear as a tool." A distant rad scorpion shadow flicked its tail. Ghoulish shadows shifted in response to unseen threats. Even the Deathclaw shadow flexed its claws, kneeling but alert. The Wasteland itself seemed to bend around the presence of his army. From a remote institute facility, a lead scientist recorded data frantically. He's controlling the battlefield. Remotely. Even Deathclaws and rad scorpions, every entity responds immediately. We underestimated him. We miscalculated everything. Jin-Woo, atop his ridge, finally stood fully. Shadows knelt obediently, Deathclaws flexed, ghouls crouched, rad scorpions poised, and even the distant institute sensors couldn't track his full presence accurately. "Let them escalate," he murmured. "Let the factions move. Let them test their limits. They will act, and I will record, adapt, and decide the outcome before they even reach me." The Commonwealth had entered a new era. Every faction, every vault, every wandering creature had sensed the rise of a force that could dominate both human and mutant alike. Even fear alone spread faster than any weapon. Piper scribbled furiously, "Sir, the world, it's already changing because of you." Jin-Woo's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. "Change is irrelevant, survival is conditional, and the world will bend or break around me." Above all, the Institute recalculated, factions repositioned, raiders regrouped, Minutemen watched nervously, and the Brotherhood debated options. Below it all, in Vault 81 and other settlements, people whispered of a figure who could control death, monsters, and shadows simultaneously. And Sung Jin-Woo, fully aware, fully in control, continued observing, adapting, and preparing for the ultimate confrontation. The spiral of consequences had begun, and nothing would be the same. The Commonwealth was tense. Factions had finally coordinated, driven by fear, curiosity, and desperation. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood scouts moved simultaneously, attempting to gather intel and test Sung Jin-Woo's limits. From a high ridge overlooking the glowing sea, Jin-Woo observed them. His shadow soldiers were kneeling in strategic positions across the wasteland. Low-tier shadows along the cracked terrain, mid-tier shadows in ruined buildings, Deathclaws and behemoths at key choke points, rad scorpions crouched in ambush, and ghouls patrolling hidden corridors. Preston whispered nervously, "Sir, they've actually coordinated. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood. This is bigger than before." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Observation first. They will act. Adaptation second. Execution as necessary. From the south, a group of raiders crept along a broken highway, attempting to flank the ridge. Simultaneously, Minutemen scouts moved in from the east, and Brotherhood recon drones hovered above, scanning energy patterns. The raiders stumbled over debris, unaware that Jin-Woo's low-tier shadows had positioned themselves silently along their path. With imperceptible movements, shadows intercepted weapons, disarmed combatants, and guided them away from critical points. No deaths occurred, yet fear rippled through them like a storm. In the east, Minutemen patrols attempted to test the shadows' response. A rad scorpion shadow shifted silently, blocking their approach. When one soldier aimed a rifle, a mid-tier shadow intervened, slamming the weapon harmlessly aside. The Minutemen froze, realizing the danger without a single strike being exchanged. Above, Brotherhood drones detected the energy spikes of Deathclaw and Behemoth shadows. Paladin Dance spoke into his comms, tension in his voice. "Sir, they're fully coordinated. Every movement precise, anticipatory." Jin-Woo tilted his head, calmly analyzing each faction's maneuvers. "They believe coordination will overwhelm me. That is predictable. Adaptation will demonstrate their limits. He extended his hand subtly. Shadows stirred from kneeling to fully alert positions, but still restrained. The Deathclaw shadow flexed its claws. Behemoth shadows shifted to cover a choke point, and ghouls crouched in hidden corners. The low-tier shadows spread like a living mist, forming invisible barriers between factions. A raider fired, testing the response. Instantly, a shadow appeared, blocking the projectile mid-air. The shooter's eyes widened. Another shadow disarmed a Minuteman scout, moving so fast it appeared as a blur. "Execution without chaos," Jin-Woo muttered. "They learn without suffering." For now. Brotherhood scouts attempted to coordinate an airstrike using drones. A kneeling Deathclaw shadow emerged silently, using the terrain to block the drone sensors, causing it to malfunction and crash. The Minutemen froze in awe, realizing the drones had been neutralized before they even reached target. Piper whispered, amazed, "Sir, even their technology, it's useless against you." "Yes," Jin-Woo said quietly. "Observation is the ultimate weapon. They act. I record, adapt, control." From the rear, raiders tried a diversion, sending fast-moving scouts to attack the kneeling shadows. Jin-Woo extended a hand, and mid-tier shadows intercepted with precision, blocking movement, disarming, and neutralizing without killing. The raiders retreated in panic, realizing they were outmatched strategically rather than physically. Preston muttered, "Sir, they're terrified, but they're alive. You're controlling them without attacking fully." Jin-Woo's gaze swept across the battlefield. "My fear is sufficient. Control without unnecessary violence ensures observation continues uninterrupted." Suddenly, a new group of super mutants entered the zone, large, aggressive, and irradiated. Jin-Woo's shadows shifted instantaneously. The Deathclaw shadow blocked the largest mutant. Behemoth shadow engaged two others, while low-tier shadows surrounded the rest. The super mutants struggled, unable to approach or organize. One lunged toward the Deathclaw shadow, immediately grabbed, slammed into the ground, kneeling instantly. Another attempted to break through low-tier shadows, thwarted with minimal force, restrained without injury. Jin-Woo observed silently. Adaptation works best when force is unnecessary. Execution will follow only if provoked. From a distance, Institute sensors monitored the battlefield. Scientists realized that Jin-Woo's army was not just reactive, it anticipated every move. Pulsing devices attempted to interfere, but low-tier shadows absorbed energy, and high-tier shadows ignored the suppression entirely. "They miscalculated," a frantic scientist muttered. "He adapts faster than our machines. Our devices cannot contain him." Piper whispered to Preston, "Sir, the world, it's bending around him. Everyone. They're watching and learning even without knowing it." Jin-Woo nodded subtly. "Exactly. Observation feeds strategy. The battlefield is controlled before they even act." As dusk fell, the factions began retreating slowly, fully aware of the Shadow Army's presence and power. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood scouts regrouped, all reporting the same conclusion. The man in the shadows was beyond reckoning, controlling monsters, humans, and technology simultaneously. Jin-Woo lowered his hand. Shadows returned to kneeling positions, the battlefield silent once more. Deathclaws flexed, behemoths shifted subtly, rad scorpions twitched, and ghouls crouched strategically. Preston muttered, "Sir, they've all retreated. They know now. No one can confront you directly." Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. "Observation first, strategy second, execution ultimate. The spiral of escalation continues, but I control it entirely." Vault dwellers in safe zones whispered among themselves, realizing that the man who commanded shadows, monsters, and ghouls had effectively dominated the entire battlefield without killing anyone unnecessarily. Even the Institute scientists recalculated in panic, understanding that their next move would be critical, but already predictable. Jin-Woo crouched slightly, scanning the horizon, noting movement patterns, faction positions, and residual energy fields. All data collected. Next phase preparation begins. The world will react, and I will anticipate. Above the glowing sea, clouds swirled green, casting an eerie light over the battlefield. The factions had tested the limits. The Commonwealth had seen the shadows, the Deathclaws, the behemoths, and even ghouls kneeling. But the master behind them remained unseen, calm and calculating. Piper whispered, still in awe, "Sir, they'll never forget this. Even if they try again, they'll know." "Yes," Jin-Woo said softly, "they will know. Observation, adaptation, execution. The battlefield bends before awareness, not before force." The spiral of consequences deepened. Factions retreated, regrouped, and repositioned. The Institute recalculated. Vault dwellers whispered. Raiders plotted. Minutemen patrolled cautiously. Brotherhood observed remotely. And Sung Jin-Woo atop his ridge, shadow army kneeling perfectly around him, remained the uncontested apex observer and executor, preparing silently for the next wave of chaos, the step that would eventually lead to ultimate resolution. The Commonwealth simmered with tension. Word of Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army had spread like wildfire. Raiders, Minutemen, Vault dwellers, and even Brotherhood units were recalibrating their strategies. The Institute, humiliated by their last failures, had begun mobilizing its most advanced suppression technologies. Deep underground, the lead scientists whispered frantically, "We can't allow him to continue. He adapts too fast. Every shadow, every Deathclaw, every behemoth under his command. If he's allowed to roam, he'll dominate everything." Another scientist added, "The suppression field alone is useless. We need full-range devices that target individual shadow units while interfering with his personal extraction capabilities. If we can trap him, even briefly." Above ground, Brotherhood drones and Paladin Dance observed movement in the glowing sea. Elder Maxon's voice crackled through the comms. "Dance, observe only. If he moves, we record. If he attacks, retreat. But be ready. This could escalate beyond containment." From a safe distance, Minutemen scouts whispered among themselves, "Did you see the Deathclaws kneel? The behemoths? It's like he owns everything out there." Raiders, meanwhile, tried to regroup and plan ambushes, yet even their whispers were intercepted by Jin-Woo's low-tier shadows. Each attempt to coordinate was silently blocked, redirected, or neutralized without bloodshed. Jin-Woo stood atop a rocky ridge overlooking the glowing sea. His shadow soldiers were kneeling, ready, and aware of the approaching factions. Deathclaws flexed their claws. Behemoths shifted their weight. Rad scorpions twitched subtly. Ghouls crouched strategically in hidden positions. Preston whispered, tense, "Sir, they're moving. Institute's deploying more devices, and factions are testing again. Coordinated, but with tech upgrades. They're serious this time." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Observation first, they act. Adaptation second, execution, as required. From underground bunkers, the Institute deployed spherical suppression devices, larger and more powerful than before. Pulses radiated outward, attempting to interfere with mid-tier and high-tier shadows. The low-tier shadows faltered slightly, kneeling unstable for the first time. Deathclaws and behemoths twitched, sensing interference. Jin-Woo crouched slightly, analyzing the patterns. They improved, but still predictable. Old-school manual extraction will bypass them. He extended his hand subtly. Shadows began moving individually, carefully circumventing the interference field. High-tier shadows ignored it entirely. Low-tier shadows rose selectively, avoiding areas of maximum disruption. A squad of advanced synths, modified to counter shadow soldiers, emerged from the glowing sea. Laser rifles glowed, energy cores pulsed, and they coordinated attacks to disrupt the kneeling army. One fired directly at a mid-tier shadow. Instantly, Jin-Woo leapt into action, shadow exchange executing perfectly. The synth was intercepted by a Deathclaw shadow, crushed silently, and a new kneeling shadow formed instantly in its place. Piper gasped, "Sir, you're not even breaking a sweat, and they're still neutralized." "Yes," Jin-Woo said calmly. "Observation, adaptation, execution. The battlefield bends before awareness, not before force." From the horizon, Brotherhood scouts attempted to flank using a combination of energy rifles and drones. Paladin Dance muttered, tense. "Sir, even our tech, it's useless. They can't approach without being neutralized silently." Low-tier shadows formed invisible barriers along potential flanking routes. Mid-tier shadows blocked choke points. Deathclaws and behemoths loomed in hidden positions. Ghouls crouched, waiting for tactical commands. Jin-Woo extended his senses outward, noting faction movements, energy fluctuations, and even subtle radioactive shifts in the glowing sea. Everything is visible. Everything can be controlled indirectly. Let them escalate. I will adapt instantly. A pulse from one of the new Institute devices hit the battlefield, attempting to disable mid-tier shadows. Several wavered, losing form temporarily. Jin-Woo observed silently, calculating. Then, step by step, he moved strategically. A single dagger strike at the device, shadow tendrils absorbing energy, and within seconds, the field collapsed. Shadows stabilized, kneeling once more but fully functional. Preston muttered, awestruck, "Sir, they tried everything. And you just adapted." "Yes," Jin-Woo said softly. "They do not understand. Observation ensures control. Adaptation preserves advantage. Execution delivers inevitability." From the eastern ridge, a group of super mutants charged aggressively toward Vault 81. Shadows intercepted before the mutants reached the settlement. Mid-tier and high-tier shadows blocked routes. Low-tier shadows surrounded them. Rad scorpions and ghouls moved strategically, neutralizing without killing. The Minutemen observed in awe, realizing the impossibility of opposition. Piper whispered urgently, "Sir, even the Institute, they've upgraded everything. And yet, it's like nothing can touch your army." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the horizon. "Everything will be tested. Let factions escalate. Observation feeds strategy. The battlefield is controlled before action." Above, Brotherhood drones attempted to relay information to Maxon. "Sir, all factions suppressed, neutralized, without engagement. Everything responds to a single unknown commander." In Vault 81, Overseer and residents watched cautiously. Children whispered in fear and fascination. One muttered, He controls everything, even the Deathclaws and the ghouls." Jin-Woo extended his hand slightly. Shadows moved seamlessly across the terrain, kneeling when required, forming protective perimeters and responding to threats instinctively. Even the Wasteland's natural predators avoided zones under his control. "Let them escalate," he muttered. "Let the Institute rebuild, factions probe, and raiders test. All moves are anticipated. All actions are accounted for. Execution will follow only when necessary. As the sun set, green clouds over the glowing sea swirled ominously. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood scouts retreated, recognizing the futility of confrontation. Vault dwellers whispered in awe, and the Institute scientists recalculated endlessly. Jin-Woo crouched atop his ridge. Shadows knelt perfectly. Death claws flexed. Behemoths shifted. Rad scorpions twitched. Ghouls crouched. The battlefield was fully under his observation. Every faction had reacted. Every test had failed. "The world is adapting to my presence," he murmured quietly. "But the real battle is yet to come." The Commonwealth, the Institute, and all factions now knew. Sung Jin-Woo's shadow army was unstoppable, adaptive, and fully in control. And he had yet to reveal his full power. The glowing sea burned under a sickly green sky. Energy readings from the Institute were off the charts, scattering pulses across the wasteland. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood units moved with cautious precision, fully aware that the man in the shadows, Sung Jin-Woo, was controlling the battlefield. From his vantage atop a jagged ridge, Jin-Woo surveyed the chaos with calm detachment. Low-tier shadows kneeling, mid-tier shadows positioned in ruined buildings, and Deathclaw and Behemoth shadows flexed silently. Rad scorpions twitched, ghouls crouched, and the faint hum of suppressed energy from the Institute devices reached him, but no longer a threat. Preston whispered beside him, voice tense. "Sir, this is unprecedented. Every faction is escalating. Raiders, Minutemen, Brotherhood. Even the Institute is deploying new tech, and they're combining forces." "Yes," Jin-Woo said softly. "Observation first, adaptation second, execution, ultimate if required." The first wave came from the south, a coalition of Raiders and Minutemen scouts attempting to probe his positions. Even though low-tier shadows outnumbered them, Jin-Woo observed the formation, noting tactics, misalignments, and hesitations. He gave a subtle command, and the shadows moved, intercepting flanking routes, neutralizing weapons, and guiding aggressors into zones of controlled intimidation. Piper whispered, awestruck, "Sir, they can't even attack you directly. They're terrified. But they're still alive." "Yes," Jin-Woo said. "Control without unnecessary execution preserves observation. Fear teaches faster than death." From underground bunkers, the Institute launched a new experimental device, an energy prism designed to individually target Jin-Woo's high-tier shadows, including Deathclaws and Behemoths, and suppress them instantly. Pulses shot across the glowing sea, causing mid-tier shadows to flicker and low-tier soldiers to kneel in instability. Jin-Woo's expression remained calm. "So they escalate. Let's see how predictable they truly are." He leapt from the ridge in a blur, shadow exchange in motion. With precise dagger strikes, he neutralized the prism's core while extracting the suppressed shadows individually. Each shadow returned kneeling, fully operational, despite the device's interference. The Institute scientists screamed into intercoms, frantically recalculating. Impossible! How is he bypassing the prism? Every variable, every countermeasure fails. Jin-Woo's lips curved faintly. Observation ensures adaptation. Execution ensures compliance. They are complementary, not contradictory. Above, Brotherhood drones attempted to interfere, targeting his Deathclaws and Behemoths with high-energy lasers. Instantly, mid-tier shadows and low-tier shadows coordinated to shield the larger shadows while simultaneously neutralizing the drones. One Behemoth shadow swiped a drone from the sky, crushing it silently. Piper gasped. "Sir, you're controlling everything, even the drones." "Yes," he said, calm as ever. Observation covers all. Adaptation responds to all. Execution delivers inevitability. From the east, super mutants, augmented by radiation and desperate strength, charged toward a Minutemen settlement. Shadows moved preemptively, surrounding and neutralizing them without fatalities. Deathclaw and Behemoth shadows flexed. Mid-tier shadows blocked the mutants' paths, and low-tier shadows restricted movement subtly, directing them to kneel. Preston muttered in disbelief. "Sir, they kneel, even the mutants, without killing them." Jin-Woo's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. Fear and control are sufficient. Execution is unnecessary unless provoked. Meanwhile, in Vault 81, Overseer and residents watched from a secure terminal. Whispers of awe and fear spread. One child whispered, He's everywhere, controlling everything." "Yes," Preston replied quietly. "He's observing everything, adapting instantly, and controlling the battlefield silently." As the Institute deployed secondary suppression prisms, attempting to trap mid-tier shadows, Jin-Woo responded instinctively. Using manual extraction and tactical placement, he bypassed interference and directed shadows individually, maintaining full operational capacity. He then extended his hand subtly. Low-tier shadows spread across potential threat zones, forming invisible barriers. Mid-tier shadows took strategic positions, blocking advanced synth reinforcements. Deathclaws and Behemoths positioned for maximum intimidation, while ghouls crouched ready to intercept. Rad scorpions shifted silently. The faction's coordination began to break. Raiders tried a new diversion. Minutemen shifted positions. Brotherhood drones flitted across the sky. But everything was predicted, monitored, and countered by Jin-Woo. Piper whispered frantically, "Sir, they've thrown everything at you. Advanced tech, combined forces, mutants, raiders. And yet—" "Observation first," Jin-Woo said softly. "Adaptation second. Execution ultimate." The Institute, realizing full frontal engagement was futile, attempted to retreat. Energy cores destabilized. Synths were captured as shadows, and all devices neutralized. Even their most advanced experimental tech could not match the speed, intelligence, and adaptability of his army. From above, the Brotherhood observed. Dance whispered to Maxon, "Sir, I've never seen anything like this. Every faction, every living being, even the Wasteland itself bends before him. Control without apparent movement, adaptation without effort, execution without violence." Jin-Woo crouched atop his ridge, shadow army kneeling perfectly around him. Deathclaws flexed, Behemoths shifted subtly, Rad scorpions twitched, ghouls crouched. The battlefield was entirely under his observation and control. Vault dwellers whispered in awe and fear, realizing that Sung Jin-Woo had consolidated absolute control over the Wasteland without a single unnecessary death. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood scouts had all been tested, and the Institute had been decisively neutralized. "Let the world escalate," he murmured quietly. "Every test, every attempt, every plan is already known. Execution is inevitable when necessary. Observation is power. Adaptation is control. Execution is finality." Green clouds swirled over the glowing sea. Energy pulses from remnants of the Institute devices flickered, trying in vain to counteract his presence. The Wasteland itself seemed to sense his dominance. Piper scribbled frantically, awestruck, "Sir, the world. They're all watching, and yet none can touch you, even the Institute, even the Brotherhood. They're powerless against you." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly, focused on the horizon. The spiral of escalation is complete. The battlefield, the factions, and the Wasteland, they are all accounted for. Next, is the final phase. The Commonwealth, the glowing sea, vaults, and all factions now understood. Sung Jin-Woo was the apex presence, observing, adapting, and controlling everything, and he had yet to return to his realm. The glowing sea stretched endlessly beneath the sickly green sky. The wasteland was silent, save for the distant hum of crumbling machinery and the occasional moan of irradiated winds. Raiders, Minutemen, and Brotherhood units had retreated to safe distances, their morale broken. Even the Institute had collapsed, their underground bunkers overrun or disabled by Jin-Woo's shadow army. Sung Jin-Woo stood atop a jagged ridge, surveying the battlefield. His shadow soldiers were perfectly positioned. Low-tier shadows spread across every critical area. Mid-tier shadows occupied ruined buildings. Deathclaws and behemoths flexed in intimidation. Rad scorpions crouched strategically, and ghouls moved silently in patrol formations. Every inch of the wasteland within his control was accounted for. Preston approached cautiously. "Sir, the battlefield, it's completely yours. No faction can challenge you. Raiders, Minutemen, Brotherhood, even the Institute, all neutralized, all aware, and all powerless." Jin-Woo nodded slightly, expression calm but resolute. "Observation first, adaptation second. Execution only if necessary. Everything is accounted for. Now, it's time to prepare for departure." Vault 81 dwellers watched from secure observation points. The overseer whispered to a technician, voice trembling, He's untouchable. Every creature, every machine under his command, even the Deathclaws and the ghouls." "Yes," Preston said quietly. "He has consolidated absolute control." From the glowing sea, scattered remnants of Institute technology sputtered and fizzled. Suppression devices were destroyed, experimental synths kneeling as shadows, and energy fields neutralized. Even the wasteland's irradiated predators seemed subdued under the presence of Jin-Woo's army. Jin-Woo crouched slightly, extending his senses across the region. Energy readings from all factions, wildlife, and machinery flowed into his awareness. Every potential threat was neutralized, every unstable factor accounted for. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "The battlefield, fully controlled. Observation complete. Adaptation finalized. Execution rendered unnecessary." Low-tier shadows formed a semicircle around him, kneeling in perfect symmetry. Mid-tier shadows lined the ridges, deathclaws and behemoths flexed, ghouls crouched in readiness, and rad scorpions shifted subtly, sensing any remaining disturbances. The Commonwealth, vaults, and wasteland creatures were all aligned under his silent command. Piper, scribbling furiously, whispered, "Sir, the Institute, the factions, the wasteland, they all acknowledge your dominance. Even without fighting, you've secured everything." "Yes," Jin-Woo murmured. "Dominance does not require bloodshed. Observation ensures control. Adaptation preserves advantage. Execution finalizes inevitability, but is unnecessary when compliance is universal." Suddenly, a Deathclaw shadow let out a low, reverberating growl, kneeling but radiating raw power. A behemoth shadow stomped the ground subtly, and even the rad scorpion's tails curled in warning. Every shadow, every creature, every manipulated entity displayed complete obedience. From Vault 81, Overseer and residents stared at the monitors. Children whispered, "He's everywhere, even the dangerous creatures. He controls them all." "Yes," Preston said quietly. "He has consolidated full dominance over every living and mechanical element in this wasteland." Jin-Woo extended his senses further, noting residual energy signatures. Small raider groups were attempting to regroup, but their movements were already anticipated. Shadows moved subtly to block potential paths, ensuring no faction could mount a surprise attack. Even the Wasteland itself seemed aligned with his will. "Everything accounted for," he murmured. "No threat remains. All factions, all creatures, all machines, observed, adapted to, neutralized if necessary. The battlefield is fully controlled." Preston whispered, awestruck. "Sir, it's complete. You've done everything. No one can oppose you, not even the combined forces of the Wasteland." Jin-Woo nodded slightly, expression unreadable. Observation ensured control. Adaptation preserved advantage. Execution remains unnecessary. The time to return has come. He raised it, cut at his hand subtly. Shadows shifted, forming a dense perimeter around him. Death claws and behemoths at the outer edge. Rad scorpions and ghouls in defensive positions. Low-tier and mid-tier shadows kneeling perfectly. The Wasteland itself, from irradiated plains to ruined structures, fell silent in recognition of the apex presence. Piper scribbled frantically, voice trembling. "Sir, even the Wasteland itself obeys you. Every faction, every creature, every threat, neutralized or aligned." "Yes," Jin-Woo said softly. "See, everything is aligned. Observation complete, adaptation perfected, execution irrelevant. The path is clear." Vault dwellers whispered among themselves, awestruck and fearful. Raiders and Minutemen remained at a distance, powerless to intervene. Brotherhood units observed silently, acknowledging defeat without engagement. The Institute, completely neutralized, recalculated endlessly in frustration. Jin-Woo stepped forward, shadows kneeling in perfect synchronization. He spread his hands slightly, drawing in ambient energy, shadows solidifying around him in a dense protective cocoon. "The battlefield is fully controlled," he murmured. "All lessons recorded, all patterns understood. Now, the return." From the glowing sea, the faint pulse of residual radiation echoed, shadows stretching slightly, kneeling yet powerful. Death claws flexed, behemoths shifted, ghouls crouched, rad scorpions twitched. The Wasteland was silent, aligned, and waiting. Jin-Woo focused, eyes glowing faintly as the space around him warped subtly. Shadows converged, energy concentrated, and the air hummed with latent power. The Commonwealth, Vaults, and Wasteland factions had all witnessed the apex force, Sung Jin-Woo at full strength, controlling all, preparing to depart. Piper whispered one final time, awestruck, "Sir, no one will ever forget this. Even if they survive, they'll know you're untouchable." "Yes," Jin-Woo said softly. "Observation, adaptation, execution complete. Return inevitable." He stepped into the center of the cocoon shadows. The air shimmered, shadows converged, and in a final pulse of energy, Sung Jin-Woo vanished from the Wasteland, leaving behind a silent, aligned battlefield and awestruck observers across Vaults, the Commonwealth, and distant Brotherhood posts. The world had been tested, controlled, and ultimately left in perfectly neutralized equilibrium. The Commonwealth was quiet, yet the silence carried the weight of awe and fear. Across the Wasteland, factions and settlements were processing the events of the past days. Raiders whispered of a dark presence commanding monsters and shadows, moving faster than thought, and neutralizing even the most dangerous threats without lifting a finger. Vault 81 dwellers gathered in small groups, exchanging stories of what they had witnessed through secure cameras. Children whispered to each other, eyes wide. He controls death claws, even the ghouls." The overseer spoke to the residents, trying to reassure them. "Yes, it was terrifying. But know this, the man who came from another realm. He left the Wasteland safe from the threats we couldn't handle. We are alive because of him." Preston muttered, looking over the ridge where Jin-Woo had disappeared. "You, sir, the world. It's changed. No one will ever challenge the Wasteland the same way again." Piper, still scribbling notes, nodded. "Every faction, every vault. They'll talk about him for generations. He didn't just defeat threats. He dominated the battlefield without killing unnecessarily. That's unbelievable." Even the Brotherhood of Steel, returning to the ruins of their observation points, admitted quietly that conventional weapons and technology had failed against an unparalleled force. Elder Maxon spoke to his officers. "Record everything. Study the aftermath. This is not a force we can confront directly. Only by understanding it can we adapt to its existence." From the remnants of the Institute, lead scientists scrambled to salvage what remained of their research. Their devices were destroyed, their synths now kneeling shadows in Jin-Woo's absence. One scientist muttered in despair, "We underestimated him. Every variable, every countermeasure, useless. He adapts faster than we can calculate." Across the Wasteland, even raiders and wandering super-mutants began avoiding the zones under Jin-Woo's control. Whispered legends spread. A man who could command monsters, ghouls, deathclaws, and shadows, who could appear and disappear at will, and whose full power remained untouchable. Preston glanced at the horizon, speaking softly to Piper. He didn't just survive the Wasteland. He conquered it, without fighting anyone fully. And now, he's gone, but the world remembers him. In Vault 81, children drew crude sketches of a black figure surrounded by massive monsters, shadows kneeling obediently. Adults whispered cautionary tales, telling each other never to venture too far from safety, lest they encounter the legendary Shadow Commander. Even the Wasteland itself seemed calmer, aligned somehow after the events. Raiders avoided once contested territories. Minutemen patrolled cautiously but strategically. Brotherhood scouts monitored from afar, wary of any anomaly. But no threats emerged. Piper whispered, awestruck, "Sir, he didn't just leave. He left a statement. Every creature, every faction, knows not to challenge him. The Wasteland itself respects him." Preston nodded slowly. Observation, adaptation, execution, all completed. He didn't just dominate the battlefield. He reshaped the perception of power in this world. Whispers of Sung Jin-Woo's deeds spread throughout the Commonwealth. A man who had arrived mysteriously, fought with unseen power, commanded shadows, deathclaws, behemoths, ghouls, and rad scorpions, and neutralized even the Institute's most advanced technologies. And when his work was complete, he had vanished without a trace. Even as settlements rebuilt and factions regrouped, the legend persisted. Raiders avoided the glowing sea. Minutemen and Brotherhood units kept surveillance, wary of any shadow or whisper of energy. Vault dwellers recorded their experiences, hoping future generations would understand the magnitude of the man who had controlled the Wasteland. Preston whispered finally, "No one will forget. Even if he never returns, he's changed everything. The Commonwealth will carry his presence silently in fear and respect, forever." Piper nodded, pen in hand. "We'll tell the story. The world needs to remember he didn't just fight. He commanded, he adapted, and he conquered without chaos. That's unimaginable." The glowing sea's green clouds swirled softly, shadows kneeling in memory of the apex presence, a silent acknowledgement that Sung Jin-Woo had left, but the mark of his power remained in every corner of the wasteland. Even the smallest creatures, the faintest whispers of energy, seemed aligned with the memory of him, as though the wasteland itself had absorbed the lesson of observation, adaptation, and execution. In distant ruins, scavengers spoke in hushed tones. "The man, the shadow, he's gone. But he's everywhere. He sees everything. He knows everything." Preston turned toward Piper, voice quiet but resolute. "And someday, maybe he'll return, but until then, the legend remains. The wasteland respects the shadows. The Commonwealth, the vaults, the remnants of the Institute, and even wandering factions all carried the silent testament of Sung Jin-Woo's conquest. He had dominated without chaos, controlled without bloodshed, and left a world forever changed. The legend of the Shadow Commander would endure, unseen but undeniable, untouchable but unforgettable." The air shimmered above the ruined wasteland as the last of Sung Jin-Woo's shadows knelt silently. Deathclaws flexed, behemoths shifted, rad scorpions twitched, and ghouls crouched, every creature perfectly aligned with his command, a testament to absolute control. The Commonwealth was quiet, the factions subdued, and even the remnants of the Institute trembled in awe from their hidden bunkers. Jin-Woo stood atop the ridge, his dark cloak billowing faintly in the radioactive wind. He surveyed the land one final time. Vaults safe, raiders scattered, Minutemen cautiously patrolling, Brotherhood units observing from afar. Every corner of the wasteland had been tested, every potential threat neutralized or brought under his subtle influence. Preston, standing nearby, whispered in awe, "Sir, the world, it's completely under your observation. Every faction, every creature, even the wasteland itself, they all respect you now." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the horizon one last time. Observation complete, adaptation finalized, execution unnecessary, all lessons recorded, the battlefield stable. Piper scribbled furiously, voice trembling. "Sir, even after all this, you're leaving? You've dominated the wasteland, controlled the Institute, commanded monsters, and now you're just going?" "Yes," Jin-Woo said softly. "The purpose here is fulfilled. My presence ensured balance, control, and demonstration of power. Nothing more is required. All entities now understand limits and respect them." Around him, the shadows stirred subtly. Low-tier soldiers rose momentarily, then knelt once more as if acknowledging his impending departure. Deathclaws flexed their massive claws, behemoths stomped lightly, rad scorpions twitched, and ghouls crouched low, silent guardians of a world already tamed. Preston's voice was barely audible. "Sir, you're not just leaving the battlefield, you're leaving a legend." Jin-Woo crouched slightly, hands extending outward. Shadows converged around him in a dense protective circle. Energy pulsed faintly, black mist coiling like a living entity. From Vault 81 to the far reaches of the Commonwealth, sensors, eyes, and instincts all felt the shift. Something beyond comprehension was about to happen. "Return," Jin-Woo murmured. The air shimmered violently as the portal began forming. A subtle distortion, black energy twisting with faint hints of blue and purple. Shadows bent toward the center, deathclaws and behemoths aligning perfectly, rad scorpions curling their tails in acknowledgement. Even the wasteland seemed to pause, waiting for the apex presence to depart. Piper whispered, awestruck, "Sir, it's happening. The portal, it's opening." Jin-Woo stepped into the center of the shadow cocoon. Low-tier soldiers knelt perfectly, ghouls crouched in silent acknowledgement, and the massive deathclaws and behemoths flexed as if saluting. The portal pulsed, energy flaring, and a faint hum resonated across the wasteland, a sound that would linger in memory forever. Preston murmured, "Sir, everyone, the wasteland, will remember this forever. Even the Institute, they'll know. Nothing can challenge you. Yes, Jin-Woo said softly. Observation is eternal. Adaptation remains. Execution complete. The world is stable. My path continues elsewhere. He stepped fully into the portal. Shadows bent, energy twisted, and in an instant, Sung Jin-Woo vanished from the wasteland. The Commonwealth exhaled collectively. Raiders fled in quiet fear. Minutemen adjusted their patrols cautiously. Brotherhood units recorded data silently, and vault dwellers whispered in awe, children staring at the monitors in disbelief. Even the Institute scientists, isolated in their bunkers, realized the futility of resistance. Piper scribbled furiously, voice shaking. "Sir, he's gone, and yet he's everywhere. The shadow, the death claws, the behemoths, even the ghouls. It's all his legacy." Preston nodded quietly, looking over the silent battlefield. "The Wasteland will never forget. Every faction, every creature, every person knows. There is someone beyond comprehension. He came, he observed, he adapted, and he conquered, without unnecessary bloodshed, and now he's gone." From the glowing sea to the outskirts of the Commonwealth, the land itself seemed calmer, aligned subtly in the absence of immediate conflict. Raiders avoided once contested territories, Minutemen patrolled strategically, and Brotherhood units monitored, wary of any anomaly. Vault dwellers whispered tales, ensuring the story of the Shadow Commander endured for generations. In quiet reflection, Preston and Piper watched the ridge, remembering the presence that had dominated the wasteland so completely. Preston murmured, "Observation, adaptation, execution, all complete." He left the world in balance. And yet, the legend will never fade. Piper nodded, finishing her notes. Everyone, everywhere, will know his name. Sung Jin-Woo, the man who commanded shadows, monsters, and the wasteland itself, and then vanished. Across the ruins, shadows lingered for a moment, kneeling in memory of their master, before dispersing subtly into the environment, leaving the wasteland silent, yet forever marked by his presence. The portal closed entirely. Green clouds over the glowing sea slowly receded, leaving the irradiated wasteland in a calm but vigilant state. Sung Jin-Woo had returned to his realm, the mission complete, the battlefield mastered, and the world forever changed. The Commonwealth, vaults, and wasteland factions would tell stories for decades of a man who arrived mysteriously, wielded unimaginable power, commanded monsters, ghouls, deathclaws, and shadows, and left without a trace, leaving only awe, respect, and the knowledge that some forces are beyond reckoning. The saga was over. The legend had begun,